And we're live again. Hey everybody. Thanks for checking out another episode of my ongoing series where I'm building a web desktop slash OS slash web OS slash desktop environment slash miscellaneous personal site for myself. This is purely fun, educational little project of mine. Try to throw some programming stuff out there for people to see and kind of check out how some stuff can be done and how you could do your own side project or make your own website. And I'm just some kid that started making his own personal website 20 years ago or so in HTML and JavaScript. And we're essentially still doing the same thing. We're just using JavaScript, but it's evolved a little bit in the last couple decades, and I've learned a bit more since then. I've actually done a version 1 of this idea before. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, by the way, anyone watching it live. And if you're not watching it live, thanks for checking it out anyways. If you end up liking my videos, throw me a like. If you want to check out more or you really had a good time, please subscribe. It helps me out. It's nice motivation, and then you guys get to see the latest stuff that I'm posting. And I'm always thinking of posting new stuff, but I'm also so busy with this project, you know. It's actually, I've started to consider it like a bit of an obsession over the last, since I started these streams basically in early January. Like I said, this is the 15th episode, so 15 weeks, and I think about it a lot. I do a lot of work on it, so that's why we have a lot to go through tonight, because this week I pretty much did stuff to it every day in the evenings. And it's kind of accumulated into a lot of different features that we can go over. Let me show you V1 here. This is the repo for it, the code repo, if you guys want to check out the code. This is for version 1, like I was saying. This is why it says the master branch there. But yeah, it's got a decent amount of stars, actually. I'm pretty proud of it. 1.3 thousand other developers essentially decided that it was cool enough to throw it a little click of a button. So it's appreciated because it's a good community to have those kind of things on. You know, it's not like, I mean, Reddit's nice, that kind of thing. The YouTube likes, that kind of thing. But this is other developers typically on GitHub. So it's nice that they thought it was cool. And if we just check it out here, I've got it hosted. Once I finish this version or get this version that I'm working on now, V2 that we're doing in the videos, once that's a little further along, that'll just be dustinbrett.com. I'm just going to finally replace dustinbrett.com with this project instead of having x.dustinbrett. But x.dustinbrett.com is where I'm hosting V1 because I just didn't feel like V1 was ready. It wasn't ready to replace the blog that's at dustinbrett.com right now, which is just some generic WordPress blog. But I've got some decent blog posts on there that I'm happy about, and I want to find a way to put those into this V2 in a cool way through some kind of viewer of documents or blogs and pictures and stuff. We'll see how we do it, but here's V1 anyways. You see it's got some cool little animations there. It's got the icons. We've got that now. We've got these. We don't have this hover effect quite yet, I don't think. And you see in this one, I integrated the blog a little bit, but just as an iframe. And if you click this, it goes to my blog in an iframe and shows my post. It's been 2 years since I did a post, so it's not like the blog's critical or nothing. But this is a different version where I had like Mac styling for the windows. You see, I'm working on just pure Windows 10 this time, and I'm going more accurate this time. Like if you see these file entries here, they're actually a little bulky compared to the real file entries. And in the V2 version, it's basically pixel perfect on certain aspects. I haven't got the font yet correct. Well, I have the correct font, but it's hard. It's not just about the font, you know, the shadow, the coloring, matching that with how Windows is doing it is actually not trivial, you know. But this has like a real file system kind of thing, a real fake file system, in that there is something backing these, but they don't have as much power as my new system has either. In the last episode, I think actually we did the file drag and drop, and we have a better version now than I ever had in V1. Because in my other version, I had drag and drop where you could drag a file on, but it didn't really work properly, unfortunately, with some of the apps. Like it wouldn't load, whereas this new one seems to be very compatible with all the stuff that I drag on. So, and today we're going to be, I can quickly segue to one of the cool things we're going to do today, which is a code editor. That'll be pretty cool, and we can use that as our default app for anything, because it'll just open in whatever and view the contents of the file, basically. What are some other cool things I had with this version? I have Doom on here using JS DOS. We're going to get JS DOS on our V2. We don't have it yet. We have x86 right now on our V2. So we can run Linux, we can run Windows 95 if we wanted to. We could even, I don't think we could run XP. We can kind of run XP in a way where we can run like a WinPE, which is like a bootable version of Windows XP kind of. But yeah, this is a fully working version of Doom. It doesn't work good on, it doesn't basically work at all on mobile. But there we go. Yeah, you can, this is me moving in the game in Doom. And I had all the maximize, minimize, all that stuff working. But anyways, this is V1, so it's got a good start menu. I haven't gotten to the start menu on V2. V1 had a nice start menu. Got the Winamp in there. We'll add this as well. This is not from me. It's not my creation, but this is legit Winamp. I actually have another, I think I have a skin on here for Winamp. Skins, yeah, SpyAmp. See, watch if I click this. It actually switches to the SpyAmp Winamp skin like it does on Windows. And we're going to have that. That's the skin I used to use when I used Winamp. And this works, but I want to go further with it this time in V2. Like, I never got the streams working, but I'd like to see if we can get some kind of streams working. Because I used to listen to Shoutcast streams on Winamp and just pick different like radio stations. It'd be cool if you could go on my website and then open Winamp and like open audio streams and just listen to streaming music. I think that's possible because I don't really want to have to host MP3s, but if I have to, I will. So we'll see. This is zoomed in, by the way, so it might not look pixel perfect, but I think we're zoomed in slightly. Yeah, if I go to 100%, that's closer to legit. That's 100%. But it doesn't look as good on the camera, I don't think, for when I'm streaming to you guys. So stay at 150. Enough with V1 though. That's the old news, right? So now we're in the redo branch. That's V2. That's what we've been doing for these last 15 weeks. And I've got a ton of changes this time. If you look at my changes here, what does it say here? 18,000 additions and 2,400 deletions, 135 files. Don't worry, it's not, I didn't do 18,000 lines of code. Some of it is like library files and such. So don't worry about that as far as like, oh man, is he going to write 18,000 lines of code in this stream? I mean, in a way, yes. But it's like literally copying and pasting a file without ever needing to open it. But we'll get into that. That's when we get into the code mirror stuff, which is the code editor that I'm going to use. There's just so much to talk about this episode. I don't know how we're going to do it. I'm sorry that it's going to be a little unstructured, but I think people are fine with jumping around. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here with this programmer just for fun kind of thing. Like, this isn't a tutorial video, so it's going to be a little trickier, this one, because I've just changed so many things that I'm going to do my reverse engineering of my updating files. I like doing this anyways, even if I didn't have the stream. I like doing a bunch of changes in a branch and then putting them into master to kind of like refactor them and be like, some of these things maybe I don't want in the end, or I want to change them, or just to rewrite them again and make sure I'm happy with how they were written. So that's what we're going to do today, but we have a ton of them to go through, you know? So let's just start. And what I'm going to do is this little arrow here to minimize them when I'm done. So I'm going to skip some of them and I'm going to go out of order. I've got them written down here. If I go to our list, let me switch to my code here. Yeah, so I've written down a good chunk of what I've done. And we're just going to go through it and kind of get it into the code. 3 of the big ones we're going to do before we even look at that diff again, I think, is we're going to update my to-do with a completely new list that I've kind of changed. We're going to probably do the package updates, NPM updates, and then we're going to do the reorganizing the directory structure. That's a big one because I was unhappy with the directory structure the way it is here. Like, if you see the utils folder, this thing is ballooned. I don't even know if I have a utils folder in the restructure. So it's a big difference. You know, I'm actually going to take a peek at it here. If I go to the browser here, if I go to that branch, redo episode 15 that I've been working on, I can kind of see the structure. Yeah, so my utils folder just has 2 things, constants and system functions. That's better. And I've restructured it completely, and we're kind of going to go over how I restructured it. And I'm going to keep this open actually because I don't completely remember necessarily how I restructured every little piece of it. But that's kind of one of the first things we're going to get into. And then we'll just get into tons of little improvements I did. The app's going to look a little bit different. You know, it's going to do more stuff at the end of this episode, hopefully, if I can get everything done. And if there's stuff I don't discuss, it's like we have a bunch of cool stuff to go over next episode. because at some point I'm going to slow my pace a little bit, maybe, because this week, like I said, in the evenings I ended up doing a reasonable amount of additions. So, but yeah, it's just like I said, it's a bit of an obsession at this point. So let's just get into it then. And like I said, let's update the to-dos. I'm just going to copy my to-do from that I've rewritten in the new branch that I've been making, because we're just going to go over it. I'm not going to remember every little thing that I wrote down. You know, that would be silly. So for the to-do, I'm just going to dump it in, and we're going to go over it. So I've copied it here. Let's go to the README, which is where I put my to-do. I could have made it a to-do file, I guess. Should I? Maybe I should. No, I think for now it's fine, because then this README at least shows right on the homepage of the branch. And it's kind of, this branch is so in flux that it's perfectly reasonable for that to be a to-do. So I'm going to get rid of everything and just paste this in. So we're starting from scratch as far as the things that I wanted to, just the order in which I put things in. I've kind of got it now more like things to do globally, bugs that I've found, things about the file manager, things about the desktop icons, the title bar, the windows, you know, the start menu, the taskbar entries, the V86, the code mirror, the app ideas that I have, and basically just DOS right now. Tried to cut it down a little bit because the list is just insane. Like there was too many ideas on there, and they're just distracting from like getting a working OS, getting a working fake OS. I hesitate whether to discuss these to-dos in the stream. I think let's not, honestly. It's very similar to the list I had before, but it's been reordered, and it's also reflects the code being in its final state from how it is after we're done the stream. So maybe at the end of the stream, we'll kind of discuss what's left. But for now, let's just kind of go over, let's just dump this in here and get this out of the way, because I'm just going to tell you up front that the to-do has been completely rewritten, as you can see here. This was just, I didn't like this order. I didn't like the way it looked in Markdown. And it was a smaller amount of stuff too. There's just such a wish list on here. We can get to all these things. I mean, I've started playing around with making new apps, and I can do them pretty fast now, like less than a day anyways. I can make one of these apps if the libraries, you know, plays nice. So we could start porting things pretty quick. But let's not discuss that quite yet. Let's just commit this now, because we don't need to go over this entire list. You could even peek at this. This is like the future, you know, and things to deal with. So anyways, updated to-dos. I'm just going to throw that one out there. Reading my to-dos isn't going to teach you about code, probably. Maybe it will, but like I said, you can go peek that at your own time. I just wanted to get that update in there. What was the next one on my list? I was thinking of putting a tab on these, but I'll just do them top to bottom. I think at some point I'm going to start doing these out of order too. So here's something I wanted to mention, which is why I wrote package updates instead of NPM updates. I should give some credit where credit's due. There was someone who left me a comment the other day. Let me see if I can get his name here. His or her name. Eri. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but anyways, thank you very much. He gave me a comment and just kind of a suggestion about switching to Yarn possibly, because he's seen kind of some of the NPM update issues that I've had, and that I've kind of moved back to NPM 6 at the moment. And it's a good point. I think I've been playing around with Yarn a little bit. It's hard to remember. Like, I've been doing so much messing around with the code recently, but I haven't figured it out enough to make it part of the stream. But I wanted to mention it by putting like package updates. So let's do the package updates, but I'm still going to do them with NPM for now because I'm comfortable with it right now. But like I said, I'm probably going to be switching to Yarn in the near future based on Eri's suggestion, Eri. Looks like there's quite a few little mini updates here. TypeScript, ESLint, BrowserFS, that one's wrong. Let's throw out an NPM update and see if it plays nice, see what updates. I don't even want BrowserFS to change, so let's just see what happens. Sometimes NPM update takes time too now, like a lot of time. I feel like it used to be a lot faster. I don't know what changed. Maybe I've just gotten a certain dependency or something that's rough on it. What are some other ones we're going to be discussing this episode, just to kind of peek at? Yeah, the directory structure, that's a big one, but I don't want to do that until we get this update out here. We can start moving the structure around actually, because this update's slow. So, boy, what did I want to do here? Let's just get to utils and start chopping it up. So context factory, let's put that in contexts. And each one of these I'm going to make into a folder actually. And the context is going to have like a file system folder, and I'm going to put the things related to the file system in there. The process is going to have a process folder, you know. This doesn't sound crazy. It sounds like, hey, why didn't you do this a long time ago? You know, good point. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to use my index.tsx trick to make sure it points to the same thing. So if you move it into a folder of the same name and then you rename it to index, you don't have to really change any of your imports or anything. So even though it auto-updated a bunch of them anyways, as I can see here because my tabs changed. But it auto-updated them, and then I think in the end it changes it back. So yeah, context file system, even though it's in file system as a folder actually. But because it's index, it's just like file system. So that part's good. So you see here for the file system, what do we got here? The context factory, yeah, that's going to be in context. I'm going to move it. I'm going to move initial context states into context. I'm going to move the use file system context state into the file system folder. So I think that's a better organization right there. So we got our package updates too. Let's just do that package update change. So good, it updated the way I wanted it to. Nice. Yeah, it looks like it got them all cool, and it left browser FS alone, did it? Yeah, that's what I wanted. So there we go. npm 6 still plays nice, and it's doing what I want. I wanted the package file to update. So let's just commit just those two package changes as the package updates. Like so. Sorry for the sniffles a bit. It's the classic allergies story that I've had in a couple of my streams, but I took some medicine this time, so hopefully it's a little more quiet. So you see it, not many files changed because of that one change, because like I said, the imports stay the same. So now we'll start reorganizing some of this context stuff. Actually, let's finish these folders then. So we need a processes folder. And like I said, rewriting this, I'm happy with this change as I do it. So you see when you move it in, it updates all the imports, because right now it's process and then process again. But if you call it index, then it's like, oh, okay, I won't even add that other process. There we go. And same story, and I'll save them because it's changed it again. And then the same story for a session. Put it in its own folder. And yeah, I'm just more happy with this organizational structure for it. So I think you guys will see it'll make more sense. So we got those index ones. Now let's move the context factory into contexts. And that should update let's save it actually first to make sure it saved all those tabs. Now let's do it. So I move it in here, and hopefully it updates the right imports. Yes, it didn't. I think it did, but now it wants to reorganize things. We'll do that in a second. Because we're going to move the other things too. We're going to move those hooks. I'm not going to have a big hooks folder anymore too. It's like, there's so many things going on here. What are they for? So the hooks, the file system one, here it is, use file system context. That should be there. The process one should be here, and the session one should be there. There we go. Now let's go into the files and see. This one it seems happy with. Yeah, there we go. That makes more sense. Rather than just in a generic hooks folder. So that's a good update there. This one wants to rearrange some stuff. Let's see what it did. So we haven't moved the initial states yet. Let's move that too. That's in utils for some silly reason, right? Here we go. Initial state. Move that like so. Now it complains again about the order. There we go. So now everything's inside contexts now. It kind of shows you too that, oh, okay, everything here is related to context. It's not like going out and to do something else. It's good to know. We're just going to reorganize all these. They're all in context. That's what I wanted to see. Nice. They're all in context. I could even commit these as separate little commits of refactoring. Let's do that. Oh man, it opened so many tabs when it was changing imports and then unchanging them, because a lot of this didn't need to change. So let's do it one thing at a time. So that was the contexts, right? Is there anything left that's contextual? Doesn't look like it. Everything here was imported was context. This stuff here, file system config. Yeah, that actually probably should be in the file system. Let's move that as well. We gotta look at all these things. There we go. Reorganize again. Yeah, that makes more sense. And the rest of these are all packages. Let's check process. Oh wait, was there anything else there? No. Let's check process. That one's good. This one, Same thing, process directory. That should be in here with the process, I would say. And I think we can probably say the same for the process functions too. That can also be in context process. That's where we'll keep the process functions. I wonder if we even call it process functions now. We just call it functions. And then, yeah, let's just do that. Otherwise it's silly. Process, of course process. It's in process folder, right? Let's just change it. See, this is something I didn't do last time. So you see what I mean about the changing things up with refactors. I didn't even notice that level of redundancy last time. When you're doing that in the file names, it's like, maybe this should just be in a folder. Yeah, I prefer that. Okay, let's reorganize this. Save that. So now they're, like I said, they're in context. Everything's moving to context. So many things were in context. That looks good. Nice. So I think that gets us good for the processes too. And I've been working with this different structure for most of this week, and it's actually so much easier to find things too. Like when I'm like, oh, I want to look in the process, it's like, of course it's in context process, and the stuff's just in there, the stuff I need, you know? And we'll probably refactor these more as we find more cases, of course, but one thing at a time. Let's check out session. Session also has the use resizable hook. Is that only used here? It's used in use R&D too. And use R&D, I think R&D could be in its own folder maybe. This one I'm not sure how I restructured. I think the session might be okay the way it is then. I'm just gonna take a peek and see if I added more to the session. No, I never did last time, so yeah, I think this is good for the context. I think we got the right stuff in there. Let's just commit that. Unless there's more. No, that's good. So how many files there? That was 22 little changes. And does it still build? That's a good question. npm run build. Does its little build action. Everything looks good. Makes a new file system. Oh, looks like it changed the file system. What changed? Let's take a peek. There's some folders there that shouldn't be there, possibly. Oh, I think when we get to the icons part too, I'm just going to copy the ones I already made and I'll tell you where I got them, because I don't want to just remake the icons. It's just a waste of time, I feel. So it built. Nice. So let's say reorganized context files / folders. All right, so that's part of the directory restructure. I want to empty out this hooks folder and this utils folder in the end. Oh, the styles too. I wanted to do that too. So there's not going to be, all these folders are just like going to be where they need to be, you know? So a lot of that stuff's going to move into components now. A lot of it was supposed to go in context and components basically. So let's say for the app here, let's say for v86, that's got a style. Let's take that right away. There we go. Move that into there and it changed that. And then it's going to need to reorganize, of course. Nice. Yeah, so that's good there. I want to move all the styles. That was one of them. So this entire folder doesn't need to exist anymore. That folder and this folder. And then same with system. Let's do the same. So the styled file entry and the file manager, we're going to move those in beside their counterparts or whatever you'd call it. And reorganize. And what happened to the file manager? Did it not change? I think there's something where you have to change, you have to move them one at a time. Like if you move 2 files, it doesn't update the paths the same way. Because it still thinks it's in the wrong spot, but it updated this one. Yeah, I think I gotta be careful with that. So there we go. I think that's correct. Yeah, there we go. That's fixed. This will be like reorganize the components, I guess, or styles. Yeah, this will be the styles one. Let's hollow out the styles folder. So that was the files, the taskbar. See, the taskbar, I'm going to break into a bunch of folders now to put these things in their own thing. And I think that makes sense too. Like the clock has things like use clock as a hook that's in hooks. It's like, that should just be with the clock. So clock, and we're going to do the same index trick. So we're going to move it first so it updates the imports. I just always do the moves first because in one file at a time, or else the imports don't quite update right. That's what I've been noticing. Start button, and we'll drag it in, and then rename it index. I'm gonna just stop doing that dialogue too. There's a dialogue that asks me every time, and it says, do you want to stop being asked? And I'm not pressing it every single time. Are you sure you want to move this into that? Okay, don't ask me again. Just move it. There we go. That should save us 4 seconds, right? Taskbar entry. This is a lot of reorganizing, but it makes sense, I think. It's good that I'm doing it again because I don't completely remember that what I did made perfect sense, but it seems more logical this time when I'm doing it step by step. I think last time I just started moving stuff, and I think it worked in the end. So here, just looking at this hooks, we got use clock and use locale time. Those are just for the clock. I already know that, so let's just move it. Use clock, we'll drag over to the clock folder, and use locale time, we'll drag over. There we go, and it updated the imports nicely. And let's see if those things were using anything. No, they were just using some basic stuff. Oh, he was using use sync clock. Here we go. It's another hook. Move that in there too. Nice. Update that import. Yeah, this is much more organized. I don't see. Constants, that's good. Constants is something that can stay in utils until I think of or maybe I'll call it system. I don't know. Maybe I should call it system as a folder. Kind of makes more sense with this OS. Let's think about renaming it, right? Yeah, we'll probably rename it. I like system in this case because it'll be system, and then there'll be a folder called. Because yeah, this is like that rule I was just saying, where like when you have a file where it's like file functions. Okay, that should probably go in the file folder. Well, in the end, I'll have I made a system functions file, I think, which is not showing here, but we'll figure out how I had that in the end. I'm not sure what I made that from. Anyways. That was the clock. We just got the clock. Next is the start button. Where are you, start button? Oh, there's quite a bit. Oh no, just the one for the start button. Nice. I think the start button is pretty simple. Yeah, it's using the common button. See, the common button will probably keep in styles too. So there will be a few things that we keep in styles. Icons is going to stay. Oh yeah, there's system there. No, that's not where constant should go though, I don't think. I don't think I will rename it system because that would be confusing. I might call it util functions though, instead of system functions. Okay, that was the start button. Next is the taskbar. Wait a minute. Oh yeah. So this needs to go to the root of this directory. There we go. That's right in the root. And did that update? Styled taskbar? Oh yeah, it did. Oh, okay. I didn't even notice. These imports are changing things without me realizing it, but it's doing them correctly at the moment. Next one up is the entries. Like so. And it wants to reorganize that. Okay, fair enough. And then the entry itself. And that also wants a little bit of reorganization. It's using the generic stylings. And I think that's it for those. There wasn't much they were using. Not that I'm seeing right now. Let's close all this junk. Let's see what's next. So in styles, we got through the file folder. We got through the taskbar, and now we got the window. Again, here we go. Now we're going to make some more subfolders as well, I think. So we're going to have a folder for the title bar. Move that in there. So many folders I could have done, and this makes so much more sense. It's silly I didn't do it earlier, I feel. We're going to make one for R&D window too. R&D window. And that's where we can put all that R&D use resize stuff. So this one has, I think, done that. Yeah, those already updated. They're updating so fast. Now let's move the styled stuff in there. Styled title bar. Styled window goes in the window. And that's it for window too, when it comes to styling. And there's the desktop too. It doesn't even have a folder right now. Let's finish the window one now. So if we go to R&D window, What's it doing here? We got use R&D. Okay, so that should be an R&D window, I think. So let's move it there, like so. Yep. And what's use R&D using? It's got use draggable and use resizable. So let's move those two to be with it. Use because they're only used there. There we go. Let's reorder this. So that's better. So those are where there should be. These are in the context. R&D defaults, that should be with R&D. That's in utils, I think. Yeah. Oh man, there's so many files now here. We haven't finished organizing it yet. That's why it's so all over the place. There we go. So now the things are where they should be, I feel. That looks way better. This one too makes more sense. Yeah, we did that one. This one here, what's that for the context state? What does it need this? Oh, to get that type. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, they're pretty much interconnected anyways at the moment. The constants, oh yeah, again, for size. It's good that it found these imports, you know, I would have missed these probably that it found. Another reorganize, doesn't do that automatically, unfortunately. Here we go. In the window, under the title bar, I was also doing use window actions. Let's also move that. And was that using anything? No. Reorganize. Nice, those are where they should be now. Oh geez, so many here. What was next? So the desktop, I need to make a folder for the desktop too. Put the desktop in there. Oh yeah, icons is generic. That's fine. The icons I'm fine with for now. So what did the desktop have? Use wallpaper? Yeah, that should go with the desktop. And the style for it as well should go with the desktop. Like so. Nice. Desktop's reorganized. And this has been reorganized as well, slightly. What's left here? Not much, man. Yeah, in hooks, there's only a few things left. That's what I'd like to see. I think some of these are part of the apps. We haven't got to the apps yet. So, yeah, I think use double click is for the app. Pages, we're not going to refactor at all. What's left in styles? We did everything in components. So we're done with the components. Default theme, we're going to keep there. Common, we're going to keep there. Global, yeah. So the styles folder we're fine with too. These file functions, again, I think are, what are these file functions for? I think they're for use file info, and use file info is for the file manager? Files here. File entry. Oh yeah, use file info, use double click. Here we go. That's where it was hiding. So let's move that stuff as well. What was it? Use file info goes with the files. Use double click is only for double clicking the files? Huh. I don't like that. I think that's true though right now. Maybe when we use it somewhere else, we'll move it. Yeah, right now it's just for file entry. But if we at some point need it for something else, I will move it somewhere else that I haven't yet decided on, I think. Yeah, because I know I need it somewhere else for the title bar. When I want it when you double click the title bar for it to maximize. So I don't like putting it in file entry for now, honestly. But we don't have a generic place for hooks because I'm about to remove it, because everywhere else it's fine to do it what I'm doing. But use double click. I'm not sure about that. Let's leave it there for now, because like I said, I'm not using it anywhere else. And then when we use it in two places, then we'll figure that out. Premature refactoring almost there. There we go. This one looks done. So where was I using use file drop then? I think in a few places I thought. Oh no, just in the file manager. Yeah, file manager. So where was that? Was an app? What is the file manager again? Oh no, that's part of files too. I just hadn't checked it out yet. Use file drop and use files. Okay, cool. So a lot of stuff's in the, oh, one at a time here, Dustin, one at a time. Or it won't update the imports correctly. We've found. Okay. So use file drop didn't change. This is fixed. This looks way more organized. Everything's just used where it needs to be used now, I think. So the hooks folder is now empty too. So we don't need the hooks folder anymore. Context folder is nice. We've just loaded up the, what's this folder we just loaded up? The components folder. That's the one we just refactored now. We haven't finished this yet. So file functions. What is using file functions? Let's check. I think that must be used by the process. Huh. Let's check. Let's just do a search. File functions. Oh, is it used in two places? Oh, okay. It's used in v86 to get the buffer to URL and load script, and it's used in use file info for buffer to URL, but then this icon stuff. Now this is tricky. I think this is where I did some wonkiness, or I changed something. I wanted to make buffer to URL and load script system functions. Those are the things that stay in utils, because those are used by several. Load script's going to be used by a few things. So let's make a new file called utils functions, I guess. I don't know about that. Yeah, let's just say functions for now. I know that's generic, but nothing else is going to be in this folder. So it's like the util functions. But I'm not happy about that at the moment, to be honest. So in file functions, let's move get shortcut, or no, sorry. Let's move the load script and buffer to URL into there. Those are going to be some globals, basically, global functions. Now this file function stuff, that's good. That is only used in one place now, I think, within use file info. Use file info. Okay, so we're going to move the file functions with the file, wherever use file info is. Let's find it. I think it's in the components system files. Yeah, here we go. Use file info. So we're going to move the file functions in there. Now, should I just call those functions, right? That's another one of those refactors now that it's in the files folder. Let's just call it the shared functions for now, until we think of a better name for it. It's a generic name, but it's just a generic place to put some functions that I'm using that are like almost in a separate context, or I don't need to define everything in one file, you know, but I need to think of a better name for that. So some of these function ones I'll have to think of a better name for. So what happened here? This is like just lost its mind. Okay, because it tried to update this, but now it's no. So this should be utils functions. There we go. That's still okay. There's one other place. Yeah, here, this piece I'll have to change. Let's copy this and do the same thing, utils, and just have that one and have it update and then reorganize. And what? Duplicate. Oh, I didn't get rid of that. Duplicate. Okay, cool. So that's still the same functionality. And yeah, there's so many more refactors that I wanted to do today, so we'll see how it goes. Right now we're just moving files around, and we're already 40 minutes in. 73 files I just moved, holy moly. So what was that? String functions. Oh yeah, that I'm going to replace in a bit. Vanta waves. This should go with the wallpapers. That's a wallpaper, honestly. I'm thinking it should go with the wallpapers. Where's Vanta wave used? Vanta waves. It's used in wallpaper in the theme. Yeah, that's where it's declared. Okay. Maybe there should be a wallpapers folder, perhaps. Because I'd like to have some other ones in the future. What about in components, system, desktop? We'll have a wallpaper folder. Wallpaper. We'll be optimistic and throw an S in there. So let's just move it in there. There we go. Yeah, I think that's fine. In that location for now. And maybe use wallpaper should be with the wallpapers then. Does that make sense? Probably. Let's use wallpaper there then. Okay. What's left here? So with styled components, in utils. I actually am fine with moving that into the styles, I think. Is that where I moved it in the other one? Yeah, same place. I think that makes more sense. It's just specifically for styling, so there we go. Now string functions I'm going to replace in a minute, so we'll just leave it there for now. I'll move it in with the functions, because it's just another function. But like I said, we're going to replace it shortly, I think, with a library, because I'd like to be able to do some other stuff with this library as well. Library, it's not easy to say. Where was I using that? Because I have to update that. No, just functions now. Just functions. There we go. That was the only two places I was using it. So I've updated about 1 million things, it looks like. But it seems to be copacetic. What's left in utils? So now in utils, all I have is the constants, the functions, and this fs to JSON I also want to move. So what was fs to JSON? That's specifically for v86. It's for their file system type. So I'm going to move it in there. And this one we have to update slightly different because it's not going to auto do the import for the script that I have here. So that part's still fine, but this part here is no longer in utils. Now it's in components /apps /v86. There we go. Exclude index out. That part's still fine. Okay, so that should still work. If we do the build command in a moment here, shouldn't give an error. So you see the folder structure is much shorter now. The utils file only has 2 things. Folder only has 2 things in it. The styles is just about generic stuff mostly, and the theme. The streams is just the stream notes. Public is essentially the public folder that we've been putting stuff in, and we're going to continue to put stuff in. Nothing fancy there. Pages is for Next.js. Context we've organized nicely now. Components makes a lot of sense now where everything is, I think. Yeah, much more organized, so people will have a much easier time finding things. Pages is still where it is because that's part of the pages here. That's why I've named it the same. It's Next.js stuff, basically. I mean, it's HTML template stuff too. And then we got our apps that we're going to start adding to. Cool. So that was huge. Oh, reorganize directory structure. That's a mouthful. It did. Okay, let's do a build. That's an understatement, I meant to say. So after we do this, we're going to push that, and then I'm going to go back to that diff that I had and compare again, now that at least the files I think are mostly in the right spots. And then we can see what else I did. So cool, it's built. Let's do commit that, and we got 4 commits. Let's throw them out there, and let's take a peek at the diff. Back to the browser. Here's our diff. So here it's like, let me copy this just for notes, just so you guys can see my trick and see what I'm doing here. Well, just remember it. 18,000 additions, 2,400 deletions, 135 files. Let me refresh. It did not change at all. Did it not get the commit yet? What happened? Huh. Because I'm comparing this to a redo. So before it would have been like, oh, a ton of stuff's different, but now it should be like less unreasonable. Is it possible I just legitimately changed every file too? No, because this part's wrong. What happened here? Doesn't seem like it's comparing correctly compared to redo. Let me try. Why is it doing that? That's weird. Let's check the redo branch here. Let's take a peek. Yeah, see, I just pushed it a minute ago here. Let me press compare. It's going to compare to master, but I'm going to repoint it at, it's probably because redo app 15 is not rebased on the latest redo, probably. Ugh, I don't want to have to do that, but I want my diff to not be garbage, so it's tricky. I mean, rebasing would be hell. I'm not going to do that, so. Let me just try one more thing here. Let me just try again. I wish that would have worked, but I don't think it's going to. Where's this here? 65. This is more optimistic. But I don't think that's accurate because I've actually... No, that's the old list, but I've actually updated that on redo. So this is not correct. Or is it? This is just the changes I did recently. What? What if I flip this? No, it's just not gonna work for us that way. All right, well, we'll go through these changes one by one. So we did the to-do. So the code mirror stuff we're not going to get to yet. Let's look at the list and see where I am now that we did the reorganize. Yeah, let's just start going down in the list and doing some of this stuff and just seeing how that goes, I think. So first thing on the list I wanted to do, the icon. I noticed last time that the text is like just one off, basically. Let me go to 100% here. It's the height-wise, it needs to go about 1 pixel up to be exactly aligned with what the other text was. So let's just do that to start. I've got the change here. So components, system. See, now it's easier to find stuff. So I wanted to, what is it I wanted to change? The file entries. So in the system components, the files, here's the file entry right there. And there's the styled file entry too. So I'm going to go into it here. And where is it that I changed it? The button is the thing, and the fig caption here is the text. So basically I'm just going to set the position as relative. I could do absolute, I guess, couldn't I? I don't know, let's try. And yeah, I wanted to set the top -1 pixel basically to go up. But let's before I start messing around with that piece, what if I set absolute here and then do it? Let's just see if the text moves at all. Did it? Oh, I'm not running the dev environment. Let me undo that change then, or else I won't even notice the darn thing probably. So let's load with the initial version. Do a little reload here on my up here. Hopefully it still loads after all that moving of stuff. There we go. Still loads. That's nice. And I can show you what we have here now, by the way. So we got our Hello World app. That's how the whole app started, as just this word Hello World. We have our Linux, you know, typical OS. Now in this size factor, I can't actually close it now because I can't make the window move enough to hit the close button. In the future, we'll have a right-click menu. We'll have a better way to close it. But right now we don't have that, so now I have to reload. Okay, so let's move that text. So let's try absolute first and see if that, it hates that. And then if I do this, yeah, there we go, perfect. All right, let's try relative. That looks a lot better. So if I get rid of the top piece, yeah, you see, so I don't know if you guys can see, like, let's see the hello world. When I press save, you'll see it goes up 1. Yeah, almost imperceptible, but that 1 pixel makes it a little more pixel perfect, I think. So that's essentially all I wanted to do with that change. I'm actually gonna add another change in here just to do both the changes that were in this file. Also the Z index here. So if I click an icon, it clicks. If I don't have the Z index, it won't let me click things. So you see now if I click it, nothing's happening. It's like I can't actually get to the button. But what I can do here too is just the same thing, is set position relative, and that'll actually fix its stacking order. So now, there you go. So now that's better. I don't want to mess with Z index in this case if I don't need to, because I'm using it in other places. So I'm just gonna, just gonna do those 2 changes there to that file, and we'll say tweaks to file entry text / index, or is index the right context? Stack context, let's just say index. All right, that change is out there. Yeah, what order am I doing these in? Now I am going to start tabbing them. So that one I did, this one I did, this one I did, this one I did. Move entry, styling, right. Okay, yeah, let's just go through some of these in the list and see how far it gets us. File manager here. So this is another thing. You see here, it's like styled file manager and then file entry. But then in file entry, I get the styled file entry. I'm actually going to just have this be more generic, I think, for now, and just be a file entry, and I'll move all the styling into here, because at some point I'm going to control it differently. I'm going to have different icons and different stylings depending on where you open the file manager, and I think it's just easier to handle all the styling parts in one spot. So it doesn't get us very much, but it's just a little refactor I wanted to do. So let's move that there. put the file entry inside it, and then take the key and put it there actually. And then we have to import this here. Oh, that's not going to do it. We'll just go here and take that import. Oh, in the file entry, we'll clean this piece up and we'll take the import and we'll bring it over here. There we go. Now it works again. Nice. So the file entry becomes a little smaller, a little more generic. Now it's just about this button. And I think at some point we'll make this a little more customizable, like it might have some more details to it. Because we do have some of the file system and modified data information from the FS, the 9p file system, I think that we could leverage. And all the styling's here now. So if I were to make this some kind of generic loaded style, maybe, I don't know how I'll do it, but I could just pass it in the two places here where styling's required, or maybe I'll do some theming here. I don't know. Still up in the air on that one. So my whole theme idea is like up in the air a little bit. So that was a simple one. Move entry styling to file manager. Oh, if I save this, all my tabs go away. That's fine. What if I do that? Okay, it keeps that. Let's do that. So move entry styling to file manager. Yeah, nice and simple change. Oh man, there's so many other changes I did. It's insane. I'm just trying to compare them to see, like, actually I didn't do too much here. I think this was literally all I had in the file manager. So I'm just kind of peeking also at the changes I did here. You see how it says everything's changed because of that, because of the reorganization and the fact that the diff thing that I wanted didn't work the way I wanted it to, unfortunately. But it looks like we didn't change anything else. It was just moving, like I said, the file entry styling here. Otherwise it's the same. So I think we'll minimize that one too. And we did that commit. Use polish. Okay, so this is the one thing I wanted to fix. If we go to polished here, I'll just show you guys what it is. Polished. A lightweight tool set for writing styles in JavaScript. So that's pretty cool. Cross-framework compatible, no matter if you're using styled components or blah, blah, whatever, you know. It's just got some handy things. I think there's another one I want to use because I'm actually today, maybe I'll do this next. I want to add color looping to the wallpaper. So it's like rainbow effect. And I think we can leverage a piece of polished for it. So we're going to do that. So let's, and also it has a function to replace this pixel to number that I'm using called strip units, I believe it's called. Let's just look through its documentation quick. Wherever that might be, hey? Where are you, docs? Where are you, docs? Probably here. Strip unit. Return a given CSS value minus its unit measure. That's useful for me because my theme's got like string with the word pixel in it sometimes. So let's install that. npm I polished. And we're going to remove it from our utils functions. No more pixel to number. And then wherever we were using it, we are going to use strip units instead. Import strip unit from polished. And we'll remove this one, copy that. And where else did we need that? Here as well. Yeah, okay. So now we just go strip unit. And now one other little tedious piece we need to do is that strip unit unfortunately returns a string. So now we just have to say number. Or I think it's like nebulous what it returns. It could be a number, could be a string. So unfortunately this starts as a string, so it returns a string, I think. So I need to convert it to a number still. That's fine. Let's just do that. Adds a little more text, but I like that it's explicit anyways. There we go. That one's done. And the other one here, same thing. Strip unit, and you're a number. And then I reorganize this because I'm using it now. And I think I had to do that here too. Yeah, reorganize this. Nice. And now we did that one. Use polished instead of pix to number. You see, we added it here. Now, do we need types for it? I don't think we do. it would have told us if we needed it. So that brings me to another one, another little refactor I'll do quick. There was, I think, the React R&D types. So I just committed this change here. And now in the types, I sometimes import too many types, and I think I did that in this case. Let's see here. Yeah, this types React R&D. I think you don't need that. And the reason I know that is if I went to the browser, I found it here, and you go to it, it's like, you don't need this anymore. And I think it told me that when I installed it, and I just didn't listen. So I'm just going to uninstall it. I think it's the only one like that, because I checked the other ones, and there weren't any other ones I'm using that I didn't need. So it's because it's provided by the package already. By the way. So let's take a peek at what I just did. Right, I just removed that. Yeah, did I have a note about that? I believe I did. Here it is. So I did this early. Don't need React R&D types. Nice, another one done. So this one here involves brackets and just refactors, but that's going to be tricky for me to find the use case where I did that. There was a few times I think that I refactored where I was using brackets that I didn't need to. But let's not even worry about that one. I'm going to delete that from my notes. Like, I don't remember where that was. That's just like, we'll refactor those as we go. This is a cool one, load scripts to load files. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to look at my code that I did, because I really did a lot of thinking to get this one the way it is. So let's take a peek at what I'm referring to. So we have a command called load scripts, I think, that I was using. Yeah. Oops. No, we want to have a command called load scripts, I guess. So in functions here, oh yeah, it's called load script right now. So it's very limited. And if you go into v86, I think that's okay. Here it is. So here's where we're using it. So yeah, see, we do load script to get the library file after you've already loaded, you're already in the browser. We have a trick where we can dump it into the append of the head. And that's pretty cool, but I want to make it a lot better and a lot more powerful, because we're going to use something to do. When we do the code editor, we're going to need to load JavaScript files and CSS files, multiple ones on the fly. And so this is how to do it for the JavaScript files, is just like that basically, but we'll tweak it a little bit. But the way to do it for CSS files is to use a link instead of a script. And we're going to make a generic function that you just pass it a list of JavaScript and CSS, and it just does it in a reasonably good manner that I've kind of messed around with. So I'm thinking of just dumping the code in here, because we got so much code to get through that I'm going to dump it in, and then we're just going to kind of go over my solution in a few of these cases, because it's going to be fun anyways, I think. So you see here how it was before, right? Actually, I'll bring you the load script part first. We'll go. So now it's three pieces. Now it's like load script, load style, and load files. That kind of goes through it all. So I'm going to show you how I've improved load script quite a bit. So here's the new version of load script. You see it's a bit longer. So some of it's the same. So we still have our on load. We still have our setting of the source. But I've also added the on error to get for errors. And the append is the same too. And the create's the same. So the only thing I've really added is added an on error, and I've added async is false. Now, the reason I've done async is false is this is a tricky one. Is like async is false by default if it were in the markup of the code when it loaded and you had an actual real script tag. But when you do it like this, where you do create element script, async is true by default. And if you try to load them in a synchronous manner, which I actually need to do when I'm doing JavaScript and you're loading plugins. So it's like, first I need the main library to load, then I need this plugin, and I need this one, and I need this one in this order, because they depend on each other. When I was doing that with promises and doing resolve or reject if it had an issue, it was coming out of order, and I was trying to understand why, because I was doing the promises in a way where it was executing them in order, but I didn't know that the asynchronous by default is actually true for this. So you have to set it false, and then it worked properly, just so you guys know. So what else did I do here? Oh, I also added a caching mechanism. So first I check for loaded scripts. By going document.scripts. Document.scripts has all the scripts. So if I were to go to the browser right now and just do F12 and I do document.scripts, you see here a big list of all the scripts. That's all the scripts that are on the GitHub page. And that's dynamic in that if I add more to it, it will this list updates. So this is not considered an iterable array that I can do .find on. So that's why I had to do this prop spreading. It's kind of just a little trick with a new modern JavaScript trick to convert this into an array that I can do stuff with in a proper way. So if I were to just go document.scripts like that, you see it says property find does not exist on type HTML collection of. So to convert an HTML collection into something like proper, my chair, man. Sorry, but my chair's messing with me here, guys. There we go. That's somewhat more comfortable, barely. So where was I? Yeah, so we convert it to an array, and then I go loaded script, find, and go through each script, in other words, in the string array, and then check the source and see if it ends with the same source that you're trying to load. Now, the reason I do ends with is because if you add a small path, and you dump that script in, and then you go to read it again, it actually adds the domain name part. So if I just do straight comparison, they aren't the same. But I'm just going with, hey, if the URL ends exactly the same, then to me that's like it's the same script. So in that case, I just resolve the promise right away and say it's already loaded, and that saves me from reloading it, because I looked in the network and I noticed that if you add the script in twice, it does load it twice. It does download it twice. So that was inefficient. Now this is more efficient, but it's basically the same thing. And now it's also a promise, like I said. So I've wrapped it in this new promise with the resolve reject, because before I was kind of just dumping it in there and just like, okay, you're in there, but I need it to wait, I need to go, is it loaded? Okay, now the next one. Okay, now the next one, So this is that controlled manner by going async false and then using a promise with resolve and reject to kind of control it. That was kind of the solution I came up with. And I pass the events. I don't think I'm doing much with them, but I do pass them. And I make a new one here for this. I don't know if there could have been a better way to do this, but it's just the way I've decided to for now. I don't look at this already loaded piece, but it's like some free documentation, I guess. So there's load script for us. And otherwise, you see it's the same. And you'll notice also the callback's not there anymore. Before onload was callback. Now it just resolves the promise. Because now I'm going to have the load files function do all these promises, load all the scripts, get everything done. Then it's going to run the callback that you pass. So load script has become more simple. And now I'm going to show you the same exact idea that I've made for load style. I don't know if there's an opportunity to reuse something here, but I basically just kind of copied a little bit of it. So it's another promise. Same thing here where it does loaded links. Now there's something called document.links, I think, or document.link, but it doesn't have a list that I could find. So it's not equivalent to like this document.scripts. So in this case, I just did document.getElement by tag name link to get the links. And do the exact same thing, just to make sure if it's already loaded, don't load it again. And then instead of a script, I make a link. I set the rel style sheet, which also sets the type, so I don't set type. Instead of source, it's ref in this case. Otherwise, it's all the same. Basically just a way to dynamically load these files after the browser is already loaded. And now I need that loader function, which I've also written already, and it's called load files. So load files is an async function, so we use it like a promise. So you see here, I don't pass the callback either, by the way. Now, instead in the calling end, I'll just do .then, I think, because I'm not going to do await, I don't think, on that side. But here, I'm just kind of doing some syntactic sugar to turn it into a promise in this case. So you see here, I say return promise of an event array, and then I do promise. So go through all the promises, and it's going to be, like I said, the string list of the files, and I reduce through them, basically where I look at every file, I check its extension. Let me import that. We need that because we need to know if it's JavaScript or CSS. If the extension CSS, I push a promise of load style of the file into the array. And if it's JavaScript, then I push the JavaScript in there. And I do that reduce. So then this piece here gets me that array of promises. And then this resolves them all in order, synchronously, not asynchronously, because I need them to happen at a certain time. And that's it. So that replaces that one function I had before, which was a smaller one. But basically, it's the same idea of just taking an element, taking a URL and putting it as a DOM element at the bottom of head. But now I'm also supporting CSS, and I'm supporting passing it all as a list. So now to reword this one, where was it here? It was called load script. Now it's load files. And you see here how before it was load script with script. We just make this an array now of one file, and instead we end that function, and then we go dot then after you've got loaded the files, then do this. There we go, and it should work the same. So now if we rerun the code, this should still load the libv86 file properly, and it will work with the emulator. Let's try it out. There we go. It loaded. So if this is loading, that means that the libv86 file still works. So our new load folders, our load files works, and it's much more functional now and cooler, you know? So let's save that. Load scripts to load files. So this is a pretty cool method. I don't know if you guys have found a better way to do it, but this like promise resolve system of putting the link or the script in the DOM, it's working pretty good for me so far. Like with this code mirror stuff that I'll show you guys later, it just works, you know? Same with the v86. I just click it, and then the user, when they visit your page, they're not loading this stuff. But without switching pages, you slip in the script and then it loads it, you know? It's a cool little thing. I don't know if it works in every browser. So I've just thrown that out there. That's done. Next thing, compare extensions as lowercase. Yeah, somewhere I'm not doing extension comparison. Probably in a few places I'm not doing it properly. Here I'm doing it right to lowercase. That's correct. Here as base name, I think that's fine, because that's just the name of it. Okay, that's okay. Here it is, I think. Yeah, this should not be like that. Yeah, because it's doing a comparison here. If it's .url capital, it wouldn't work. So that needs to be like that. Anywhere else? Here too, I guess. Yeah, here as well, if these happen to be capitalized. So let's lowercase those. There we go. I think that's better than the version I wrote initially. Yeah, it is. So nice. And did I have anything else in this function here? No, that's everything. Oh wait, where did buffer? Oh, buffer should be up here. Darn it. Let's move that up here. I wanted to keep it alphabetical, and I had that there. I still haven't done the cleaning up of this. I want to do that though, because this create object URL is kind of expensive. It needs to be cleaned up, and I'm not cleaning it up right now. So that's a problem with the v86 when you run it. I use this, and it's not an efficient function the way I'm using it, because I'm not cleaning up after it. So yeah, we did the extensions to lowercase, and we also reorganized that, but I'm just going to say the lowercase thing. Compare extensions as lowercase. Yes. Oops. So define Vanta effect. I guess this is just something I didn't do. Yeah, we got Vanta effect here, but it's an any. Yeah, I'm not proud of that. And don't I use it somewhere here? Where do I have a type here called wallpaper effect. No. Vanta wave settings here. Oh, it's right there. Huh. Why did I want to define this type? I mean, I don't want to have any any's. So for that reason alone, I want to define it. I just don't remember if there was a good reason why I did that. Seems like no. Oh, there is later, yeah. Right. This is for the color stuff. Maybe let's just do both at the same time then. So define the Vanta type, and where's this rainbow stuff? Rainbow wallpaper. This is jumping ahead a little bit. It's not really in maintenance and housekeeping. Let's move it over here to rainbow wallpaper, and let's do it then, actually. We'll get to rainbow wallpaper. We'll get there. Let's just do a few more refactors here. This is an interesting one here. So get files to update files. So if I were to drag a file on right now, let me do it right now. Let me find a note, show notes here. So I'm going to drag those onto the browser and let it drop it in. There you go. So you see right there, it came at the top. I do not want that. I want it to be at the bottom. So let us fix that. So there's a file function, there's a function called getFiles that I pass to file drop. Let me close some of this stuff. That I pass to file drop, and then I run it when the file is written. But instead, I want it to be called update files, and it can possibly have a file appended to it. Yeah, that's what I've written there. And here when we run the command, so in this case, we are appending files. So we say the file name. Yes. And this needs to be update files. So that part is good the way it is. It won't do anything yet because this get files is still get files and not what we need it to be. So that was in 2 places. Oh yeah, in the file manager, I passed it here. So let's just keep renaming it. Call it update files here. Call it update files there. And now here we'll deal with it. So update files, update files, update files. So it's turning it into an update files command, and now it takes this piece here, can be append file like I was suggesting. And I don't know if it needs a default. I'm not sure, to be honest. But how do we handle this? So in set files here, this needs to change slightly. Let me see how I did the logic here. Oh yes, okay. So set files, we need to see what the current files are. And remember, these dispatch react commands can also be a function that gives you the current state. So we'll say with the current files, if you have an append file and the contents of your current directory includes the append file. Wait a minute. You have an append file and the new ones are there. What would be the case for not doing this? Huh. I have a weird condition here that I've written. Let me write it out and see if this makes any sense. So, I mean, this part makes sense here. So you take the current files and then you add the appended file to the list. Oops, append file, come on. Append file to the list. And I have the else condition as just using the contents. But I need to read this because this sounds like gibberish to me, what I've written here. Let me fix it here first, the type. Like I said, it's append file, and it's a update file, sorry, that can take a optional string. There we go. Why is it, what? Oh, what did I write here? I wrote gibberish. There we go. That part's correct. So what have I written here? I'm confused by my own code, unfortunately. So let's say you read the directory, the contents is going to have stuff in it. So you go set files. Do you want to append a file? And is it in the contents? Why wouldn't it be? That's weird. Oh, okay. This is what the check is for. Is if the file is like too massive or something, and it fails, you wouldn't want this to try to append. Would it? Because use file drop. I mean, this is just a callback. Yeah, I'm not even checking for an error here, I guess. I guess I could. Is there supposed to be an error here? Yeah, API error. I guess if there was an error, don't send a file, right? Because then there's no harm in appending if it's empty. What if we try that? If we do that, we don't even need to run the command. So let's say no error and update files, right? That makes sense. So in that scenario, only under a successful appending would append file have content. And in that case, you don't need to check here. We just set it as this always. And append file might be undefined. It shouldn't be an any though. It can be a string, but it can be nothing. And then maybe set files can be more simple now. There we go. Oh, right. I still need it to be a function because I need to get the current files and then append to it. But I don't know if I need to check if this exists and if it's really in the file structure. Oh, maybe I should anyways. Because, well, if fs write's successful, then why wouldn't read have it, right? Is it reasonable to need to check? Let's just assume it's not and see if there's no error, right? What's it complaining about now? Is that just not the way to do that? I'm confused. Maybe I made this up. Does this need to be in brackets? Nope. Contents is declared, but its value is never used. Oh, that's fair. Why? What was the logic behind why I wrote this? And why does this work, but the one I have doesn't? So many questions, right? Because why can't I just... Okay, contents isn't used because I don't need to check if the file is there, because if append had anything, that means it worked. But then why doesn't it... So I don't need to check the contents before I read the directory? That doesn't make sense. Oh, okay, because the contents... Current files could be empty though, wouldn't it? No, not on load. That's very unlikely, right? But it's a weird condition that I wrote there because contents includes... If contents includes that, then why wouldn't this be just contents? See, the thing is, it'll be out of order if we just use contents, because contents puts it to the start of the list. We just want to append. We don't want to use contents. We never want to use contents. That's where I'm confused. I think at some point we do. I guess if the current files are empty, right? Yeah, that would be the case for it. If current files dot length is 0, then just use the contents. Otherwise, use that. Why is it complaining again? Because current files... Can current files be... It's always a string array, so that shouldn't be the problem. Oh, because append file maybe can be a null? What if I make it a string by default? Oh, okay. So you can't you do that? I thought you could have undefined in your thing here. Am I prop spreading it? No. So if I'm like 1, 2, and then undefined. Oh, okay. Well, I don't want that. Yeah, I wouldn't want to. Yeah, why would I have thought that would have worked? Sometimes you just got to try it out to realize how silly it is. So I think some of my code was actually decent the way it was, honestly, with that initial check. Maybe. I need to check for append file, basically. So if there's no append file, then you just want the contents. It's like a refresh. But the refresh is going to change the order. That's a frustrating piece. It always needs to use current files. Maybe what we can do here is just have a little condition here for append file, because I don't want it to append blank entries either. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't want the refresh behavior anymore in general. So update files, if you pass nothing, okay, the first time we can do a refresh, but to load it, every other time I don't want that, because you're going to end up reorganizing the icons. So if you drag something on, that'll append, but then for some reason you trigger a refresh, that'll resort things. I guess that's okay for now, because yeah, is that okay? Maybe it is. Well, if it is, then we don't need to check the length. If you don't pass a file, then we just throw contents in there. So if there's no append file, if append file exists, then append, otherwise give me contents. And we're not going to check the the thing I was checking before to see if it's included. We're just going to assume it's included, because if it failed, it would have never even called update files. Okay. So let's try that again. So let's say we reload the page here. Oh, we got to clear this data now. I don't want that file on there. Clear the file, get rid of it. So now if I drag it on here, cool, now it's at the bottom. That's what I wanted. That's much nicer. And if I drag it on a second time, okay, well that's actually 2 files, so that's fine. I want to try a failing one. Let me try to drag on something massive. What do I got here? Trying to find a file big enough to make it fail. I don't have a lot of big files on my computer, unfortunately. Not on my C drive, at least. Here we go. Let me try to copy this. Well, it didn't do anything, so I think that is a good result. I tried to copy some 4 GB thing. 2 GB is the max, and I think not even completely 2 GB because there's already some space used from other stuff. So let's clear those files. We got that working now. That's nice. Reload that. So what did we change? In the file manager, we switched to update files. We switched the logic here that if there's no error, then update the files. And we've switched the logic here that if there's an append file, you just add it to the list. Otherwise, we just get new contents. And it seems to work when I press reload and stuff. So let's call that a success. What was that? Get files to update files for appending new files. What? I don't like the way I wrote that, but it's done. All right, this is another minor one I noticed, CSSProperties. I think I'm importing the styled component one, but I'm not. What is this for? This is for screen size, which is used where? Yeah, it's used directly on a div. That has nothing to do with styled components. So I actually wanted to use the React version. I don't think it makes any difference at all, but I'm just going to import this from React. There we go. Slight correction. And I think there was one other place where also it's not properly needed to be that. Okay, here it's already React. So now in both cases it's React. So import CSS properties from React. If I were using it on a styled component, perhaps I would use the styled component one. File entry, use position, not z-index. Yeah, I actually did that earlier. I did that. This one here, I think. Adjust file entry, text one up, and use position, not z-index. Nice. So don't need get shortcut. What am I saying here? I think I just wanted to refactor this slightly. Yeah, like get shortcut. What is it doing? Read file. It's doing more than it needs to, honestly. It's like this fancy promise. But if you go to where I'm using it here, I use FS here. So I'm thinking, let's just use FS here also for now. And, oops, I closed the stream notes. Yeah, and let's just worry about that function later, you know? I don't want this get shortcut function. It's just a waste of space right now. So let's take the piece that we actually need, this FS read here, and put this in its place. Then we're not passing FS around too. So it was doing path. That part's the same. I might make this generic at some point, but not yet. Are we gonna worry about the error case? What is the error case? How did I write this before? Darn it. Here we go. Oh yeah, this is, I pretty much did it the same then. So this one here will set info, what is it? It's like this, the get file by extension, I guess, for now. Let's just do what it's doing currently, and then we'll replace it later as we kind of adjust things, as if we adjust things. So that was essentially what that was doing with catch. And then this piece here, set info, can just be like that now. And the base URL, or no, the icon, sorry, comes from the icon file. It can be blank. Am I writing this correctly? I think so. The URL can be that. And the PID is the base URL. And what am I basing that on? This here. This is the same mapping. Base URL is PID, icon is icon, URL is URL. So it's doing the same thing here. So that replaces that piece. And what's it complaining about here? The spacing now. You can get rid of this. There we go. So now there's some pieces we don't need. Why is it doing brackets there? Huh. This is actually how I have it in the other code. Oh, wait, why am I not using internet shortcut? What is it talking about here? I don't want to use internet shortcut. I'm confused why it thinks I need to. Declared but never used. Is it declared? Oh, okay. This equals is the default. This was my mistake here. This needs to be more destructing. I want to get deeper into the object. Enhance. There we go. That's how I wanted that. So it's bigger, this URL piece, but not by a huge amount. And now we don't even need this entire function that was doing promise stuff that was like kind of unimportant. And also we don't need this type anymore. This was just being used because I needed it for that function. So now our file functions is very small now. It's just get icon by file, get process by file. And now this piece here doesn't need that. And we bring that import in here. There. So it's a tiny bit longer the file, but I think that's a little more succinct. And I just didn't like that function. It just wasn't necessary. Don't need get shortcut. That's true. Oh, I don't know if we're gonna get through everything today, guys. I'm feeling my energy's at a 4.3 right now, unfortunately. I need another Red Bull. I already finished a blue one earlier in preparation for this, but it's warm. We're at an hour and a half. The last video I did was 3 hours. I don't think we're gonna, I don't know, we'll see how far we get. There's so many things I got to do here. When toggling copy process. Oh yeah, this is a cool one. This is a bug fix. Oh, what's this? INI not defined. Didn't I fix that? Did I throw a commit out and I got an error in front of me that I didn't even address? What am I doing, right? I think the window froze actually. Yeah, it actually froze. Let's say wait. Can I refresh it? No, that broke. I'm gonna reopen the app. So nice. There we go. That's back. So there was no error, and the get shortcut still works because the shortcuts are there. So I didn't think there was an error. So as far as bugs, so if we open up this window and then we open up this one. Oh, did I already? I haven't even styled the task entries yet. Oh, and that's totally something I've done now. So watch, if I click one to minimize. Wait, how do you minimize? Oh, okay. Yeah, we need to do the task entry thing before we get to this toggling part. Do I have that in here? Taskbar. That's part of the styling, but we need to get to that now in order to do a bunch of other stuff, unfortunately. Yeah, let's do the taskbar styling because that's actually kind of fun. Well, let's just do these other two little pieces first then. So there was one other thing I noticed was export. There's a function for export that I will be using in the future when it comes time to distribute this and put it on GitHub pages. So I'm going to add the function now, and you'll see here that the problem I had. So it's just called next export. That's fine. But if I try to do that, so npm run export. Have I done build yet? No, let's do build first. So I think the issue with export is that the i18n stuff that I'm using doesn't work with export, which is kind of silly. But at the same time, I'm not really using the i18n stuff for anything important other than that HTML English tag. So I'm okay to get rid of it for now. So here we go. So it failed. And yeah, it says here, no export path. Error i18n support is not compatible with next export. Whatever. Let's get rid of it. So what do we need to do to get rid of it? Let's take a peek. So this piece here doesn't need to exist. The default locale en. So that's what we're going to replicate in some kind of hard-coded constant. So this piece here we're not going to use anymore. And we're just going to have default locale. And we'll figure this out later. We just won't use their built-in I18N if it's going to have these stupid limitations. It's like, I don't need it then, you know? What's it complaining about here? Oh, okay, formatting. Ugh. Can I just put locale? That formatting's awful. Maybe I'll just put locale. Yeah, I mean, it's a constant, so. Oh, I like the word default, but I hate what it did to the spacing there. Let's make a constant anyways. Export const. Yeah, we gotta call it default. Default locale equals en. Right. Oh, I spelled default wrong. Maybe I spelled it wrong last time and I don't need to resize. That would be great. There we go. So let's rename it again, but I think it's going to resize. Oh, something real ugly. Copy. Paste. Paste. Yeah, okay, that's gross, but whatever. That's just the way it is. That's the way the cards fall. So where else do we got 18 on? Not many other places. Nowhere else? Good. Locale. Yeah, that's still fine. So now we've got a hard-coded. Yeah, that shouldn't break anything. So now if we try to do an export, now it works. So I prefer that. I'd rather be able to export the project than have just some basic little thing. So let's add to our to-do notes actually about that. In the bugs, let's say HTML lang tag is unset, because that was something the I18N was doing. And we actually had a solution for that, a custom document, and we undid it to do the I18N, but now we might have to redo it because we can't use I18N. So whatever. Let's make a note that we did that one. And we had to change a couple things to add export, but that's that. And it exported. Did it build? I didn't test the build. I'm gonna say it's probably going to build, and I'm just gonna commit in 3, 2, 1. Come on, build. -1. There we go. All right, so that works. What's next on the list? So we got rid of that. So icons to PNG. I think we might do the icons in a tiny bit. Wait, let's see what icons I have. What icons do I got? Public icons. I'm gonna open them in a folder here. So I have image, Calibri, Linux, unknown, and v86. Okay, yeah, let's replace them. So I'm gonna go into the code here where I've already kind of replaced them. And let's just find them, image.png. There it is. And how did I do these? I just took the icon file and just converted it to PNG with some other tool, and then I ran it through something called File Optimizer that I've been using for a long time. This guy, I don't know who, it's just some random dude that makes this, but it's actually a pretty legit file. Yeah, look at all the things it supports, and it does a heck of a job compressing things with lossless too, so not lossy. So the image quality remains the same. So there's our image icon. Where's the list here? Where's my list? The Calibri one. We need that one too. The Linux one. And we're gonna have a bunch more icons that I've added. Actually, not a bunch more, but I've added a couple. But we'll get to those when we get to them, which might not be today because I'm just realizing how many things I did. I think I'm gonna have to do nothing next week just so that I have, like, so I don't overload myself the next week having to catch up with the stuff I don't get to this week. Okay, so there's the icons. So let's save them. Save. And I'm not going to change the favicon because I think I need that to stay ICO format for just the way the browser looks for it. So I'm going to keep that the way it is. But I've just got the PNG versions of those. So I'm going to paste those in. So you see they're here now, and I'm going to get rid of the icon versions. So the icon versions was 39.3 kilobytes, and the PNG versions is 8.86 total. So it's like a fourth the size for essentially no quality loss visually. And I'll cut that down more in the future, I think, as I optimize them and get it's better loading. And this is PNG, but there's other formats too. There's WebP, there's AVIF, I think, are some new ones out there. So We might support them all one day, you know, who knows? We're gonna go deep with this. So let's update the places where I'm referencing all this stuff. This will be PNG now, PNG. Not too many places actually that I am doing it. Favicon stays the same. Calibri. There we go. That's pretty much all of them. So Favicon is still there. Otherwise, it's good. Save that. And we will label that as icons to PNGs, even though I have a bunch more at some point that we'll be doing. Updated in the script where it's loaded. And let's try npm run dev again and make sure our images still load. So when this loads, it should have icons. Ideally, quite a few of them. Yeah, nice. And I don't think we'll visibly notice much of a loading difference. It's local anyway, so I'm going to save those. And so yeah, the toggling issue, we can't get to that yet until we see the task entries to understand it properly. So I think it's time to get to the taskbar styling. And let us peek at the code and try to find where I did it. Here's some of it. Oh, so I've added some hovering too, right? One thing at a time here. Autoflow row. Yes, this is an important piece here in the file manager. So if we go to the code here and we go to the file manager, style, we'll see, wait, is this the right place? Why am I in the file manager? I need to be in the taskbar entries. I wanted to discuss the taskbar and now I'm just totally off track here. Yeah, because there's just too many things that I got going on here. There we go. So this is barely anything that I changed. Where's the part where I fixed the fact that it's not even looking correct? Because they're not ordered correctly. I don't remember what I did to fix it. Here we go, styled taskbar entry. Oh, I changed a lot. Let's check it out here. Let's go to the code. System, taskbar entry here. Style taskbar entry. How many of these things are unique? Oh, there's so many things I've changed. It's just insanity. I set a lot of spacing too, it looks like. Why did I do so much? You know, I did too much. Too much, took too much. Let us try to solve the entries piece first. I just want to see them in order so I can figure out what I fixed. Oh, is it display flex? Okay. So if we go to taskbar entries, basically I didn't add too much there. And the first most important one was display flex. So let's open a few things. So I open up Hello World and I open up the Linux one. You see here in the taskbar entries, there's only one showing. If I do display flex, there they are. Now they're both there. Okay, cool. So here's, yeah, let's do that first. So now I got them showing in the list. And if you hover over them, you see the sizes are wrong. One is like really tiny and one, they're basically sized based on their text. That's something we'll fix. But watch if I click one. If I click it, you see they switched orders. So that's because it got minimized. So let's save this first. So show taskbar entries left to right. That was an important change. So now we can get to this little other piece here, toggling. Basically the processes thing is broken right now. So if we go to the contexts, processes, the functions, I have a function here called toggle process settings. And what it's doing is it's taking the processes and it makes a new process every time that puts it at the start. And all I want to do is change the content of the process. I don't want it to be moving around the array positions. So that needs fixing. And I'm going to do a very simple solution. And I'm just going to paste it here. So basically the way I had it now was with this big, where I was destructing processes here. I'm just going to take the current processes. I'm not going to paste it, by the way. I'll just write it out. I'm just looking what I wrote here. Yeah, I take the current processes. This has to be a function now because I need to do a tiny bit of logic here. Can't just pass the response out. So basically what I noticed is I actually don't 100% understand the reasoning here, but I need to make a copy of the processes. I can't use the current processes. If I just change this and return it, it's not happy with that. So I've changed it in a different way. I've made the new processes, and then what I do is I say the new processes, get the process ID, get the setting, and just flip it. Say whatever the setting was, I want the not version of that. I want the opposite of it, and then I just return that. And my hope was to just be able to do like this, that, and just return that. But if I do that, you see it's saying here, assignment to property of function parameter. Yeah, like don't reassign the params. Okay, you don't want me to, but I thought that was a linting rule, you know? I thought it would have been okay, but it's actually not okay. If I save that, I think like it gets really, now nothing works, you know, and minimize and maximize don't work. But if I go with this new processes approach, I save that. There you see, now it's working properly. Now they're minimizing and maximizing as expected, and it's not reordering them in the taskbar. So that was basically it. Instead of making a new object, well, instead of making I'm still making a new object here, but I don't, you know, I don't reorder where the key is. So what did I put there in the notes for what I was going to call that? Yeah, when toggling copy process, not rebuild. Simple enough change from this make an object where the new process is at the start and then the rest. Now I'm saying make a copy of all the processes and then just go to wherever that key is, change it, and then just return that. And that gets a better result. So that's what I've called the refactors that I've changed. As far as the taskbar styling, let's go find where I did it. So components, system, taskbar entry, styled taskbar entry. We need to style that. And also the entries. What else was left on the entries? So there was one little piece here that I wanted to get to. Let's finish the entries. Because remember, we just did display. I also wanted some spacing between them. So now that they're flex, we can actually use the gap settings, column gap and row gap. And I noticed that in Windows, the taskbar entries, there's a 1 pixel spacing between them if they're different processes and you don't have grouping on. But like if you have several Chrome tabs or Chrome windows open, it'll put those together and there'll be no 1 pixel space between them. I'm not going to worry about that little edge case for now. I'm just going to put 1 pixel space between all of the entries. Because typically, that's how it's going to typically be with my app. I think you're going to have different apps open. Maybe not. I guess you could have a bunch of file explorers open and then they would group. But we're not there yet, you know? Let's not worry about that. So I just need a little bit of column gap. So let's put some column gap of literally 1 pixel. That's all it is. And that gets that piece. So now there's a little spacing between these pieces here, the 2 entries right there. And the next little piece I wanted to do is on both sides of the taskbar entry, there should be 3 pixels of space actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set the margins to be no pixels, no spacing on the top and bottom, but 3 pixels on the left and right. And if I save that, it moves over a little bit. So now there's a little bit of space between the start button and the first entry. And if the entries go over to the point where they fill up the taskbar entry bar, then there'll also be 3 pixels between the clock and the taskbar entries. That's how it is in Windows. So let me just say tweaks to taskbar entries to be more accurate, to be more close to Windows. And now let's look at this, what I did to the taskbar entry, because I did quite a bit to that also. Now it shows that I changed a ton of stuff. See, there's pieces I've done that we won't get to yet. I've also got the focus piece too. So when you focus on a window, it'll actually focus, it'll show that window's focused in the taskbar. So I'd like to get to that today too, if we can. So what do we got here? Background color, I'm not setting now. Oh, on hover I do. Yeah, so on hover I have a background color currently. But that, oh, okay, that's based on if it's active, right? So yeah, it's never gonna be, it's currently only on hover. Currently we don't have a focused window. That's gonna be another piece that I'll do in a little bit. So what pieces can we do? So that's if it's foreground. So what else do we not have? Do we not even have the, oh, we do have the blue bar underneath the taskbar entries. That's cool. I wanted to fix the width. The width is wrong here. Let's instead have a max width. Let's instead just have width, and we'll have a min width is 0. And that should set it to always be the right size when possible, rather than have a maximum. There we go. So now you see at the bottom here, you see these are both the same size. That's the width they're supposed to be. And if it shrinks, it'll shrink properly now because the minimum can go all the way to 0. What other settings did I add? Yeah, padding, margin. I've gotten the effect for when you hover now too. Like, can you see in the, yeah, oh, that's going to be tricky to show. I'm trying to think how I'll show you guys that. I have an effect where when you see the blue bars at the bottom underneath the taskbar entries, the little blue bottom piece. In Windows, there's actually 2 pixels also on either side, and when you hover, those go away. So I want those back. I want that effect, and I have a way to do it. I'm going to do it without the foreground piece, and I'm just going to show you guys what I did. So we set the margins to 0 and the padding. What have I decided for the border padding? Yeah, it's 4 pixels. So I'm not going to do the theme stuff today. In my commits, I've actually moved this stuff into the theme, but I'm too lazy for that today. So let's just do this. We're going to hard code these, but they're connected, the numbers. They're both relevant. Oh, margin should be actually here. So margin of 0 plus that. Let's see what that gets us. So if I save that, you see now the taskbar entries have a lot of space in between the blue bars. Let's see if I can zoom in and show you guys that better. Oh, it's not easy. Oh man, now it's even worse. Let me reload the page here to get rid of Linux. So I zoomed in too much there. Let's try something else. Let's switch to the browser here. 1 second, I gotta turn this thing off. I got battery charging that's making too much high-pitched frequencies on me. So what did I want to show you guys here? Oh, I wanted to show the page to see if I can zoom in here. So let me open a hello world, and let me just zoom in on that. So you see that blue bar, it's very obvious now at the bottom there. And I'm gonna tweak the margins. Let me untweak the margins for a second. And oh, it's hard to see. We need a second window to see contrast. Okay, so you see the 2 blue bars there, and you see there's only about 1 pixel of space in between them here, in between the things. And if I add the margins of 4, you see now there's lots of space, but it's also increased the size of the window more than I wanted. Oops, I need to peek at the code to remember what the next piece was. Right, so it's the same for padding. Oh no, padding you don't even have to set then. Okay, so, and then the next piece is the hover piece. Oh, I need to move hover up a little bit in the code here. So I'm gonna move back to the code for a second here. So I'm putting hover up here just because it's a little easier to access and it makes more sense to be up there, I think. So here we have the margins, and then here we have to not set them. 0. And the padding, we basically flip the margin and the padding. Yeah, there we go. That makes sense. So the margin and padding flip. If it's hovered, you lose it and then you get it in the padding. Let me try that and see what that looks like. Yeah, there we go. That's partially what I wanted, but it's shrinking. It's actually the opposite of what I wanted. It starts big, and then when I hover, it gets smaller. It should be doing the opposite of that, so I obviously have something backwards. Oh, the width? Maybe I need to set the width here too when I hover. Oh yes, I was doing width adjustments. Right, so the hover width is the natural width here. The hover width is the full size, and the non-hover width we need to adjust for this 4 pixels doubled because it's on both sides. So it changes the width. We don't want to change the width. So I'm going to do -8 pixels here, and this is going to be a calc. So we take the max width and we subtract 8 pixels from it, like so. Yeah, so the style taskbar entry, it has the width that I wanted. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to change actually too while we're at it. This 161 should be 160 actually. That was a misobservation on my part earlier. It should be 160. So there we go. So it takes 160, but then it minuses 8, and then it counters it with the margin here to make that little empty spacing for the border. And then when you hover, it removes that, but then sets the full width. And the padding makes sure that it doesn't do any shifting, I believe. So let's try that out. Let's switch back to the browser and see how that looks. So you see here we have them. There we go. So you see when I hover over it, it not only does the background change, but the blue bar also increases on both sides. And there's no other layer, any kind of shifting going on. Now in the future, I'm going to make this animated because I noticed in Windows that at least the blue bar piece kind of pops out in like maybe 100 milliseconds or something like that. I don't think the square does, the background. I don't know if that's a mistake on their part and they wanted the whole thing to pop out, or if they just literally only wanted the blue piece to do that. So I'm just going to replicate exactly how they do it anyways. I hope to. We'll see if I do. But anyways, that's the hover effect for the taskbar. That part's correct now. So yeah, so it's like you see a mixture of width, padding, and margin, and kind of just messing with it here. Here the padding was already 0, I think. We could be explicit, I guess. Let's say padding 0. There we go. So we start with nothing, and then, yeah, that looks better. So that's basically what we had before. And the thing I'm going to change later is we're going to have the ability that when I'm looking at the Hello World window, that this entry will be as if it's hovered, basically. There'll be some effects that are like as if it's hovered. But I haven't gotten to those yet. So we're not going to mess with some of these. I was thinking of removing height too. I don't think that's necessary. It's just superfluous. You see, I get rid of it, nothing changes. So that was just an unnecessary one that I'm going to get rid of. Other than that, what else did I change here worth discussing? Oh, the wrapping for the text. I wanted to copy what I did with the title bar here. So you see in the window, as I make it smaller, the text goes into ellipsis and then disappears. I also want that for these windows here, so that when we open another window here, you see that ain't right. That's not right. So to fix that, we're gonna have to use a few things. We're gonna use these 3 pieces right here. In fact, we're gonna do the overflow and the X is hidden, so it'll cut off. We're gonna do text overflow goes ... and no wrapping on the white space. So not hello and then white space world is doing a wrap. I don't want that. So let's save those 3 settings. So there we go. That basically fixed that. Honestly, that's really all that we wanted there. And then what else? I changed the margins. I don't know if we're going to mess with that today because I don't know what I changed them to. And logically, I went with 0 and 4. Let's try that out. Like the way it looks now is not bad actually. So I'm trying to understand why. Let's try it out. In the fig caption here, I've set 0.4 pixel. Let's save that and see what that looks like. Oh, okay. It made the text even smaller. Is that more like how it is? I don't know if it is, honestly. I think I was happy with it the way it looked. Let's just leave that the way it is, and let's just say that that's not dealt with yet. Fine-tuning of the taskbar text. I'm gonna have to get back to that. And we'll constantly be trying to pixel perfect some of these pieces that aren't quite right. But this is the basics. We fixed the taskbar entries completely now. So now they resize like I want. They have the hover effect that I want. The text is the way that I wanted it. That's good enough. We haven't gotten... Is the margin perfect? Is the text perfect? I don't think so. No. And also it doesn't have the background effect. Or sorry, the foreground effect that when a window is focused that it does some other fancy stuff. but that is another piece. So let's just say, yeah, tweaked taskbar entries, entry styling. We've kind of improved that. Man, I almost want to just skip to the code mirror stuff. So what have we done here? What about the index? Let's try that. Okay, that's actually working at the moment, the index. Yeah, as the foreground window part's not, but taskbar index above windows, that we don't need to worry about just yet. Let's say that must be part of the focusable stuff. Wait, where is the focusable stuff? Where did I write that down? Refocus on reopening. Do I even have it here? Because I've added like a bunch of stuff for doing focusing on Windows. Oh, here we go, stacking order. So yeah, when I'm messing with stacking order, that's when we'll also make sure the taskbar is still above everything else. Taskbar entries 160, we did that. Padding on the sides, we did that of the taskbar entries thing with the column gap, and we got the hover effect. We didn't do all the hover effects as far as like clicking and stuff, I guess, but let's not worry about that just yet. Let's just say hover effect for taskbar. So we did that piece. Maximized icon, that's another reasonably easy one to do. Let me just find where I got it in the code. So the React desktop, these guys have some decent stuff for some examples. These guys did their own recreation of the Windows bar, and I've kind of checked out their stuff and used it sometimes a little bit, pieces of it. I don't like their minimize favicon, it's a little too thick for my liking, but their maximize one is pretty much perfect, so I've decided to take that. I inspected the SVG and kind of did my tweaks to it that I always do to stuff. And yeah, now I have it. So let's copy it in. So components, system, icons. So we want to make another icon called maximized icon. And I'm just going to give you guys the path that I've made here. So I'm going to replace the path with that. Otherwise, it's literally the same. It's 10 by 10. It's just a different icon. And Windows icon, I think I was thinking of readjusting some of these icons too and kind of reorganizing these. Let's do that too while we're at it. So the Windows icon, I'm going to put that in the start menu. Taskbar start button. Let's make a file called windows icon.ts. Yeah. And just put it, just put it right in there. And it's going to complain probably. What is it complaining about actually? Oh, this is JSX, so I need to put TSX. There we go. And it's probably complaining because it's the only export. Let's just ignore that. And I don't want to do, or maybe let's do default export here actually. Is there an autofix for this? Yeah, let's just do export default. There we go. So that's our Windows icon, and I'm going to import that here. Yeah, this will become this entire piece of the path. Oh, and then I gotta, oh yeah, now it's the default export. And I probably have to reorganize this. What's it complaining about here? Run autofix. I'd like to. There we go. What's it complaining about still? Unable to resolve path. Really? Oh, I put Windows icons with an S. Sloppy. Yeah, Windows icon. There we go. So there's our Windows icons back. Still there, okay. And what's it complaining about now? Unable to resolve. What? This has been fixed. Let me close this, open it again. There we go. So now these icons focus just on the Windows title bar. So I'm going to call these window action icons. And we're going to put those in the window title bar. There we go. And if we go here, we'll just export them from here. Window action icons. And they're in components. Oh, it's already corrected all that. Okay, cool. Just got to fix the imports, I guess. There, nice. So now the icons are kind of organized as well. I kind of prefer that. And I think it worked. Let me reload the page here so I can see the hello world. Yeah, there we go. They're still there. So we got our maximized icon. Now we need to use it. Let me see how I was using it here. So we need to use it in the title bar. Let's find the title bar. Here it is. And we already get maximized? No, we don't. So let's, from the process, also get its maximized state. Maximized. And then we'll say here, where is it? Here. We'll say if it's maximized, use, oh, no, let's not do that. Let's do it like this. Maximized, we use the maximized icon. Otherwise, you use the maximize icon. I think that makes sense. Seems simple enough. I have to import it, of course. It's going to give me trouble. It's going to give me a hard time. Let me just do that. There we go. And that resolved that. So now if we go to the window and we maximize it, cool. Now the icon looks maximized when it's maximized. Nice. Now, did we do anything involving the styling? Because I see that I've added a minimize class in my other code, so I'm interested if I messed with the styling. Doesn't look like I did, so why do I have a, oh, here we go. Styled title bar. Let's see what I changed here, if I changed anything of relevance. Looks like I did a very minor tweak to the margin. I don't know the logic behind why I did it. Let's try it and see what it looks like. So I went from margin bottom 2 pixels. I've also added 1 pixel to the left, is it? What is this? On the SVG, what if I save that? Oh, okay, so I moved the minimize left by 1, I think. Why did I do that? Oh, I see what this changed. So basically this change is just about the fact that the minimize, maximize, and close buttons needed a little bit of adjustment. They weren't quite pixel perfect, I guess, when I did my last compare. So what I'm going to do is I'm also just going to make a minimize class to go with these other two. So everybody has a class. So maximize has a class, close has a class. Let's give one to minimize. Minimize. So now we can target all 3 of these. And then I wanted to flip this rule, basically. Instead of saying close and maximize are this way, I'm going to say that the bottom has a 1 pixel adjustment on minimize. So I want minimize to go 1 down, and I want the other 2 to have 2 to the right and 1 up. What is this? What is this arrangement here? I've forgotten what the order for margin is, honestly. Let's take a peek. Margin CSS. Look for the Mozilla one because that's the better one. Here, let's see where the explanation is. There we go. Top, right, bottom, left. So it's right and bottom that I changed. So 1 pixel right and 2 bottom. Okay, so I had 1 pixel right before for the things, but now I'm saying minimize is a little special. So basically, long story short, whatever these tweaks are, they're the tweaks to make it pixel perfect. So if we look at the title bar now, we'll look at the minimize, maximize. I'll save it and you'll see the button, the minimize, maximize, and close button will just slightly tweak. There, it's almost imperceptible, basically. But anyway, so this tweak here is for the best. It's the right pixels in the right direction, basically, without getting too far into it. So yeah, that's icon adjustments, let's say. Title bar icon adjustments, or just icon adjustments even, because I moved the Windows icon. Icon adjustments / reorganize. Yeah. Let's say title bar, nah, just say icon adjustments / reorganize. There we go. So that gets the minimized icon. That's that piece. Oh man, we haven't even gotten into the big stuff yet. The rainbow wallpaper, the save session, the stacking order, the start menu, the refocus on opening, the focus on next, the code editor, file explorer. There's so many things I did this episode. It's unfortunate that I feel like I did too much and we need to split up this commit into 2 episodes, and I need to just kind of do some refactoring next week. I think that's probably a good idea. Maybe it'll give me some spare time to make a new video, because I'm always doing streams now and I've gotten too obsessed with getting all these changes. So I feel like we've done a lot of changes, but we haven't done enough. There's still so many more to do, so I'm going to have an episode 16 where we kind of bring in some of this stuff. Let's pick some of these to do. Let's do the rainbow wallpaper. It's a fun one. So what did I have? Let's go to the Vanta wallpaper. Vanta waves. The basic trick to how I did it, if we go to React.js, I noticed when I was on their waves wallpaper, where I got this from, that you can change the color on the fly. But it's not part of their API, which I thought was interesting. At least I couldn't find it. So I kind of dug into how this little customizer works. And it basically just changes the variable. Changes a color variable within Vanta. And the variable is called, drum roll as I find the darn thing, options.color. Surprise, surprise. So what have I done here? I've added a check. Let's kind of, again, just do copy paste. I've changed so many things. I think I'm going to change the format for some of my next streams where we try to do more stuff live, but I just get so excited throughout the week and I do so much and it's almost too much to catch up on. I feel like it's kind of funny, but maybe I need to do 2 streams perhaps. I have to think about that. But let's see, what have I changed here? So I'm going to write the function to show you guys the start of this idea. So basically, because Vanta effect can be undefined, so I go, if it's not undefined, then we want to use this color cycle function that I want to make up, in which we pass in the color, which is part of settings already. Yeah, settings.color, that's already a real thing. That's giving us the default color that's coming from here. Currently it is, what is the color currently? Let's find it here. Styles, default theme, wallpaper. So the color is this number right here, this little gibberish, 172B36. So we say, starting with this color, I want you to run this function every time you shift the color. So I want you to take this, here's how I want this color cycle function to work. I want to give it a color, and I want it to start shifting the color on a frame per second that we'll hard code in. I guess we could pass that into refresh rate or something. I might do that here. But basically, based on some kind of frame per second, update the shift the hue slightly, kind of around a rainbow of a hue shift. And then I've decided what we'll do is we'll call a callback every time you shift the hue and give me the new color. Because then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set in the Vanta effect.options.color, I'm going to set the color and just update it. And the reason I do it this way with a callback is then I can make color cycle generic. So all that color cycle does is it takes a color and then runs a callback to pass the new color to a function. And it doesn't need to know anything else about how Vanta does it and that kind of thing. So that was my logic behind it. And then and it has a destroy function to kind of stop trying to send new colors. So when Vanta effect, when we do here the destroy of Vanta effect, there's also a Vanta effect built in on destroy that we'll try to run. So we're going to assign that to our own little custom destroy function. So when we call Vanta destroy, not only is it doing whatever Vanta destroy it does, but it's also going to run our on destroy. And I'm going to do this too. This can be a little bit shorter. There, made it that tiny bit smaller. So now I've explained what color cycle is supposed to do. So let us make it. So let's make a function, color cycle.ts. And I'm hesitating just dumping it in here. I think I'm just going to dump it in and we're going to discuss it. So this is what I ended up coming up with for my color cycle. It's not a super long function, I'm proud to say. It's only 45 lines. So remember polished that we used earlier. So we got polished here. And the reason I imported it was for that strip unit instead of pix to int. But we can also use it for adjust hue, where you give it a color and you give it a degree of shift and it gives you a new color. That's exactly what we want. So here's where we're setting the FPS to 15. But like I was saying, I guess we could pass that in. Where do we use it? We use it here to get the time per frame. Yeah, maybe we do set the FPS here. Because it's fun to be able to pass along a different FPS to color cycle. So let's say here the time per frame will set here as that. And we need to pass in FPS after this. And do we want to have a default for FPS? Yeah, let's have a default, and let's not necessarily need to pass in an FPS, but it's an option. It's cool to have. And then we don't need these two pieces. Yeah, there we go. That works. So now the FPS can be controlled for color cycle. So in here, I guess it'd be here. So I could set it to like 60 FPS or something if I wanted to. But let's not. Let's just leave it at 15. Or actually, maybe we should put it here and make it a constant. Let's not pass it here and say it's a number, and we need to be provided it. And then in Vantawaves, we'll pass in the default. Default FPS. Does that make sense? Default FPS? Refresh FPS? Yeah, I'm not a fan of that either. Maybe let's not. Maybe I'm overthinking this FPS thing. Let's not even pass FPS. Honestly, 15 FPS looks right. I don't know if we'd want to change this. That's just our color cycler does 15 FPS, the end. So how does the color cycler work? It takes that initial color, it takes the callback. So I found this code online. I think this started as Stack Overflow or something. Basically just to kind of iterate the degree to get a different degree. It's extremely simple logic anyways. So we got last frame time, and it's also wrapped in with the request animation frame. Oh, I mean, that's a whole other episode to kind of talk to you guys about that. I got this code from my old V1 where I also did rainbow shifting. And I used something called request animation frame instead of doing like set timeout for the FPS. This is much better on the browser to use this system of calling for animations. And their example is kind of similar to what I've done, where you make a function that calls request animation and calls itself. It's almost like recursive, and then it kind of keeps calling itself. And that's essentially what we've used here. So here's where we're using request animation. So we make a function called update color, and then we say request animation frame. We request the browser to run the update color function. And after it runs it, at the end of its function, it requests the browser again to run it. And that just keeps going until you do that onDestroy that we've made. And what onDestroy does is it says cancel the animation of whatever the next ID was supposed to be, because ID we update it. So we keep track of what the next frame is supposed to be so we can cancel it at any time. And then what do we do in update color? Pretty simple. So we do time since last frame is greater than time per frame. And first we get the last frame time. That's the current time when you first start it. We start at 0 degrees. And then when we first update color, we get the current time. That's going to be different from the last frame time. We take the current minus the last frame, and we call that the time since last frame. And if the time since last frame is greater than how many frames the time per frame, then it's time to do another frame and time to update the color. So we iterate the degree, and if we get to 360, we go back to 0. The last frame time, what do we do here? We update the last frame time as the current frame time minus the last time since frame time and the amount. I'm bad with this percentage one in this case, this modular. This is the math required to do the calculation from Stack Overflow. I copy and pasted it. I don't have a perfect explanation for it, but it's extremely simple if you think about it. I don't want to think about it. So this gives us the colors, you know? So where's the next piece of magic I did? So we got that adjust hue where we take the degree. So let's say I want 80 degrees, and then we take the initial color. So here's some little color magic that I've done. So remember that the initial color, you have to, for Vanta, it requires it to be like this int, this number. So it's kind of stupid, but whatever. So for now, color cycle just supports number as color. So you have to pass the color as a number like this, like the way that they're doing it here. But in the future, I could make this also support strings. So right now the color cycler is in some ways kind of locked in with Vanta and that it needs to be this number color, but that's not something Vanta specific. It's just the way we have it right now. So in here, I'm taking a number color and I convert it to a string, a 16 hex string. And then I add the hash symbol in front of it because that's what adjust hue wants. Adjust hue wants the hex to be like this. All that this does, by the way, let me copy this and show you. It turns this into that, basically. So it already was, it's just the way that Vanta wants it, you know? So that's just a little tiny way that I've gone to convert it. And then when adjust hue gets done with it, we also want to return it as that same number that Vanta likes. So we take the new hue and then we replace the hash symbol with 0x. So we basically take this and we convert it. So let's say it does the color, it changes the B to an A, let's say. We take that, we switch this to 0x, and then we convert this to a number. And then we've shifted it. We've shifted the hue in the way that Vanta wants it. And we return that. So that's the basics of all it does there. Just shift the color. And now we import our color shifter. We fix the fact that it did a terrible job importing it. What is it? Components /system /desktop /wallpapers /color cycle. There we go. We reorganize. And now we got a color cycler. And now look at the wallpaper. You see, it's blue. Oh, now it's purple. Oh, it's working. So now we have like our V1, our color cycling, which is a very cool little style that I'm pretty happy with. That's a nice looking one. And what did I do here? What did I break in Vanta Waves? How is this working? What the heck? Oh, I broke the cleanup command by mistake here. I just noticed here that I at some point I deleted the destroy function. But I don't know when. Let me undo some stuff and see when that gets fixed. Oh, okay. When did I do that? Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. I don't know if you guys noticed, but so let me re-import that. And then what I meant to do when I cut this was to just replace it like that. There we go. That time it looks the way I thought I did it last time, but maybe I didn't. So that's better for the cleanup, but it didn't matter for functionality, so it worked anyways because it never needed to clean up. And even if it did, it just would have not done it properly. Okay, so that's our color cycling. Nice. So here I didn't add much. I just added that little color cycler thing, gave it the original color, and then set up this little callback to update here, and also to clean it up. And then the color cycler we kind of just went through. So rainbow wallpaper. Man, I hope I get to the code editor today. I don't know if I will though. I'm tired. Out at 2 hours 17. We're actually doing not bad. So there's our rainbow wallpaper. Oh, do I want to do save session? That's another cool one, hey? That's another cool one. Let me just see if I have. Yeah, how much things are involved in this session? Let's take a peek. Let's go to the session. So context session, use session context. So in the current one, I had very little compared to how big it's gotten here. Actually, no, it's not that complex, honestly. I just have a bunch more stuff in the session for the foreground ID and for stack order that we haven't got to yet. But luckily, that stuff's not too important. So let's save the session. And what I mean by save session, so if I open the window here, I move the window around, put it in the middle, close it, open it. It's in the right position. Great, that's where I want it. But if I refresh the page and open it again, it's forgotten the position. I want to remember that between refreshes. So what we're going to do is we're going to save it to a file, actually, to our fake file system. So we're going to use the fs, use file system. Oops. Like so. And what's the next piece? So use effect when the component's loaded, we're going to attempt to do a writing of the file. Is this true? Is this? Oh, when anything changes, we need to write to the file, actually. That's critical, or else people are just gonna... Yeah, what was my mentality? It was gonna be just on load? Yeah, that'd be pointless. That's not how I wanted to have it anyways, so. Oh, we need to know when the session's loaded. If we just do anytime something changes, then the first load overwrites the session. Because on the first load, it's empty. I think, isn't it? Let's double check. Let's just get into the point where we write it then. Let me write the way where I didn't do the session loaded and see what happens here. So we want to write to write a file, and it's going to be on the root. It's going to be session.json, and it's essentially just going to be a JSON file, just json.stringify of some JSON. And the JSON is going to be just the stuff that we care about here. The theme name and the window states is currently all we have. So that's all we're going to save in our state. And when are we going to do that? We're going to do it on, yeah, on load doesn't make sense. It's going to be when theme name changes or when window states changes. There we go. Does that make sense? I think that makes partial sense. We're not done yet though. That's just for writing anyways. So let's see. So we put it there, we close that. And then now it's there. Now if we reload, it's not going to work yet. So it still doesn't know because we haven't done the loading aspect. So that's the saving piece. So now let's do the loading piece. So this would be same. This would be a read file. Read file. Oh, we also need to update this to say when fs changes too. So once we have fs, you want to write the file whenever theme name or window state changes. And the read file, that's only going to happen on the load of fs. And what the read file is going to do is also going to read from session. We're going to make this a constant now because we're already using it twice. Session file equals session equals that stuff there, paste that in there. We're going to use it here to read. And we need the code here. That's the error content that always comes from it. So content, we don't need to put in an empty buffer here because possibly the file might not exist. So we're going to check for it. If there's content, then we're going to do stuff. Then we're going to read the content. And as far as reading the content, I'm just going to copy what I had. So the session is going to be the parsing of the contents converted to string. And then we're just going to set the stuff. We're going to set the theme name. And we're going to set the window states. Oops. And I guess if we already know the contents are there, well, we don't necessarily know that each one of these things exists. I'm just thinking if we want to destruct here. No, we don't want to because that would mess with we already have naming here. We don't want a conflict. So let's just do session dot theme name and session dot window states. And I wonder if we can say here that session is going to be session because we already have session context state. Well, it's not session context state. It's just session. Did I define a session ever? I never did. Let's leave that alone for now. Oops. There we go. So that's the loading part. So let's see how that looks. What's that give us? So let's reload the page here. So we open up the window, we move it into the middle, close it, still remembers it there. Now if we reload, no, so it didn't remember it. Why is that? I think that's like I was saying. Like the load here that's happening is overwriting the fact that these at some point start with defaults. So the first time when it loads, they're defaults still, and then it's like this is happening before this is happening. Now, what's the best way around that? The best way that I can think is to do this session loaded that I was doing for now. So let's just do that until we can think of a better way. So added a session loaded piece here, and we'll assume this is the session loaded. So it tries to read the file, and would it be in read file? Yeah, if it reads the file, if there's contents here, we're gonna say session loaded. No. It's gonna read FS is gonna kick in, it's gonna try to read the file. It might not find anything, I don't care about that, but I want it to say the session loaded. It tried, you know? That's all I care about. The session attempted to load. Whether or not there was any content there, I don't care. Once that has happened, then we want to look for it. So now once the session's done, the file's been read, now we can write to it, because now we'll have the latest stuff here and here. QRSTUV, that goes there. There we go. So that makes more sense. So yeah, so it waits for session loaded, and this doesn't need to be a function anymore. This can just go straight to that. There we go. So that should work now. So we open it, we put it to the middle, we close it. That's working. Now we reload the page and we open it. There we go. Now it's in the middle. So now we have a session storage. So that's cool. And if we had File Explorer right now, we'd be able to see that that file exists now. But we haven't gotten there yet. So I think that's it for session that I care about. To save it. Let's write it down. Save session to file. Done. Cool. We've got 18 commits. I'm going to push those just for the heck of it. So where are we now with this? It looks like we don't have too much left if you count the list here. So we're actually making decent progress. I'm actually not going to do the start menu placeholder because in the episode 15 setup, I had it where when you click start menu, it opens an empty box that has nothing. But it's pretty anticlimactic. It's like, who cares? It's empty. So I'm just going to get rid of that. So the next one that's a big one is this stacking order. So you see here, if I open two windows, and you see here, I pick one. It's not, I'm clicking it, but it's not becoming the focused window. So there's a lot of code for that. But I think that's the next thing we need to get into because it's pretty important. So I'm going to find it in the code here where I wrote it. And I think we're going to just start right with that, honestly. So we're going to go to the window. This is involving the window. So we go window, and just right in here, I'm going to make a hook called use. Actually, no, I'm gonna write the use case before I've written the. I'm gonna write the usage so you guys can see my thinking behind it, because I didn't have to change window too much, which is always an important piece. So here's window. Oh, it wants some rearranging here. Okay, I wonder if there's any more of that I missed. npm run ESLint. See if there's any more import rearranging that I missed. Possibly not. It looks like it's happy. It hasn't crashed yet. My OBS has been really good, not to jinx myself, but it hasn't frozen in a long time. It used to freeze all the time, it felt like. I don't know what's changed. Okay, this is the longest ESLint ever. I think my ESLint's busted. What happened there? This is the longest ESLint ever. Huh. Well, I don't trust ESLint, so I think something's going on there. Let's add that as a bug. Or let's add that to the next stream. Next stream. Is ESLint broken? Why so slow? Question mark. Alright, I'm gonna cancel that for now. I don't care. Let's just make the note. So I made, wait, what happened to my note? Oh, that was in the stream notes, yeah. So I rearranged that. Rearrange. I'm not even worth a commit, is it? It's not even worth a commit. Whatever. We rearrange that. Moving on. I want the window to be focused when I click it, and I want it to move to the foreground. To do that, I'm going to make up something called a use focusable hook. Let us attempt it here. So here's what the use focusable hook will do. It'll take the ID of the window, and it's going to take a reference to the object. And it's going to return a new Z index, as well as the focusable props, which is going to be the functions that it needs, like on focus, on blur, and it's just going to drop that stuff in there. So we're going to paste that piece on the styled window. That's where the on focus events are going to be. and the tab index and the stuff that's needed to make it properly focusable and to be able to do focus and blur on it. And the Z index is going to be on the R&D window. And you'll remember that in R&D defaults, I actually had a Z index here. Here we go, we had Z index. So we're not going to use Z index there anymore. And now we're going to be controlling Z index in here through the use focusable piece. So you see here I had a window ref. I need to do use ref here for that. I've actually got that copied. So the window ref is using use ref. And I've put here that it's an HTML element, but I know exactly what it is. It's a section, so there actually is no section. That's why I put HTML element. That was it. That's all I need to do. Oh, I need to put ref here. I need the ref to actually point to something to be used. There we go. So that's all we need on the window side to make it focusable. Now this has got the hooks and this has got the Z index. What's it complaining about style here? That's weird. That might be true. Maybe I need to bring, oh yeah, because R&D window is my own custom component. So style is something I need to carry over actually. So let's, because I need to bring it over. Style is CSSProperties coming from React. And it's a type here. There we go. Why is it complaining still? I don't know. So style needs to go directly on the object here. Like so. Nice. So that got passed along without too much hassle. Now as far as use focusable, this is I don't remember exactly the complexity of this function. It is part of the silly part here. I think we're just gonna have to copy it and take a peek at it. It's 50 lines, 51 lines. So let's see what I've done here. So here's the use focusable piece. Like I said, an ID and a window ref. Now, there's so many little pieces to this. So session, I've had to add some stuff. To make it focusable, we need to have a concept of a foreground ID, essentially. So in the session, we say, for the entire session, this is the thing that's in focus right now. This is the thing that's in the foreground. And we also need to have a stacking order for when we're switching between windows to know which things were in front of which, basically. So we need to add some stuff to session here. We'll do that. Let's do that first, and then let's move on to the next line, actually. So our session needs to have some more stuff. Context, session, use session context. So what were the two things we wanted to add? We wanted to add a foreground ID and a stack order. Stack order being an object of IDs and the foreground ID being just a single ID. So let's set the foreground ID one. Foreground ID. Set foreground ID. Like so, and that's a string like I said. And then the stack order. Element of PQRST, so that would also be here. Stack order, and we can set the stack order. And like I said, that's an array. And we have to do all the copying here, so that's going to be part of the session file that we now have. It's also got to be monitored in the dependencies. Like so. And it's also got to be exported with all the other stuff here. Why is session up here? Oh yeah, because it's not related to the other stuff in the same way. So foreground ID can go here. Stack order can go here, I guess. Set foreground ID. And set stack order. There we go. So that, and now we need to add that stuff to the types. There's so many places we have to add this, actually. So like I said, that's just a string. And the stack order is just a string array of strings. And the set stack order is a dispatch event to the string array. And the set foreground ID is dispatched to just a string. There we go. So I think set stack order, what happened? Why is it complaining here? What's wrong? Maybe I should just read the error. There's a wild idea. The expected type comes from property set stack order, which is declared here on type. What? String. Something's wrong. I have something wrong, unfortunately. Stack order. Where's stack order? Oh, maybe I should be explicit here to say it's a string array. Yep. That fixed that. So there we go. So we've added that stuff to the session, and we can move on to the next piece here. So that's all stuff that's stored in the session, even though we're not using it yet. So how do we calculate the z-index as to what should be at the top? We take all the amount of stuff that's in the stack order, which is all the open windows, and we subtract it by the position of, what is this? So the position of the item minus the length plus 1, is that just to get its current z-index? I mean, it's basically just to get its position in the stack. The plus 1 is that I don't want a 0, because 0 doesn't, in z-index doesn't quite work right. So yeah, this is just basically finding the position that it is within the stack. Yeah, that's fine. And converting to a z-index by adding 1, basically. Couldn't I just, why do I need to minus 1 then? Oh, because I'm flipping it too. So like if there's 5 windows and it's the second from the bottom, 5 minus 2, it's the third. Yeah, I'm basically reversing the order, because in this order, the first thing, the thing at the top of the stack is the thing you want to show first, but that would give it the lowest number in the position. We want it to have the highest number. So I have a function here where I check the foreground. Is foreground. It's a memoized function where if the ID is the foreground ID, then it's in foreground. And then on blur, if it is so this gets into the behaviors that I've kind of set up already. So if you're the active focused window and then you blur off of it, yeah. So basically I'm just resetting it. So why would you blur off something that's not the foreground? Wouldn't it always be the case? I'm confused by that. On blur, and it's not the foreground. Huh. That's a good question. Let me comment this out and just have it like this. So on blur, clear the foreground ID. That sounds reasonable. Because if I click another window, then clicking that window will set the new foreground ID. If I click nothing, if I click the desktop or something, I want it to clear the foreground ID. So to me, I don't have to check if it's the foreground. I don't understand the purpose of that for there. So then I have my move to front function, which is a callback that updates the stack order. It takes the current stack order. It puts the thing that you want to move to the front, the ID, it puts to the top, and then it dumps the rest of the stack order out, but it filters out the current ID. So basically it just takes, if there's a list of things, it picks the one and it puts it at the top to move to front. Because as we've decided, things that are at the top are going to be higher in the z-index, which is what we want for them to show up front, because that's how we've calculated the z-index. And then the next piece here. So when the component loads, we have a few effects that load. The first one here is for if it's foreground or if it has no z-index. So when this loads, if there's no z-index, then that means it just loaded basically. So it wasn't even in the stack yet in that case. Yeah. So when it loads, if there's no z-index, then move it to the front. It wasn't in the stack. Let's put it in the stack and let's put it at the top. That means it opened. Now, if it has a z-index, Because remember, it can't be 0. We do that +1. We don't want any 0 as z index. So any z index will make this true. We'll make that false, I mean, and it'll go on to the next thing. So if it's foreground, is foreground moved to front? Oh, okay. So that's when we do set foreground ID. This is the thing that actually moves it in the stack order. So if we set foreground ID as the new ID, okay, move it up in the stack order. That's what this thing is watching for. Now this one is another one. This is just when it first loads. So this is when the page first loads. We've defined move to front. We got our window ref that's not going to change. So on the first load, basically, you want to also move it to front. So then why would z index ever be empty? If on first load I move to front, I can't imagine why z index would ever be empty. This seems like a bad idea the way I've written this. Because, okay, so it's just consistent. Like if it's foreground, is this just going to keep happening over and over again? It's foreground, move it to front. It's foreground, move it to front. But then it'll have as, yeah, I don't like this logic, honestly. Let me do that and also say moved to front. It was working, but it's for some reason this seems inefficient to me. I'm not sure. This one makes sense. So when it loads, move it to front right at the start. And also focus on the object itself, the window. That's important. So that one's good. And then here, we need something to consistently... I don't know if we need this. What's the purpose of this? So if it's got the first move to front, why would there ever be a need for another one? Oh, right, because the set foreground. Yeah, because when you first click it, that is setting... Well, what is clicking doing? Do I have something to set foreground ID? I think that's... Oh, okay. So foreground ID can be set by clicking a title item too. So if I click something from the taskbar, I'm saying I want this item to become the foreground item. That's different than clicking the window. So that's different than on focus. Yeah, okay. So I've also done on focus here. You see here in my exports, I've said on focus is also moved to front. So when someone clicks the window, it does this. It updates the stack order. Yeah, that's why I'm worried about this function here. This makes sense so that the taskbar entry can set something to foreground, but I wonder if it gets in some kind of loop. I don't think it would, because foreground, okay, you set it to true, now it's not going to change again. Move to front won't change, the z-index won't change again. I think this actually makes sense the way this is. I don't know if the z-index part makes sense. Why do we care about that? I feel like the z-index piece isn't going to be a problem. That might be some legacy garbage, I don't know. Okay, so that part, those are the effects. We're going to play with those. And then the returning part, the part that gets treated as the... So remember, we extract out z-index to use here on the R&D window, and then the rest goes to focusable props. So the focusable props are on blur, on focus, and tab index. So you need a tab index to be set for on focus or on blur to work properly. And then on focus is going to be moving the stack. On blur is going to reset foreground ID. And I think that makes sense. Okay, well, yeah, I'm still confused by the conditional here, because how would it not be... Let's make another console log here. This is where it's useful to do all this work that I've done in the week, because I've answered all this confusion, but sometimes we need to do some testing. So what other pieces do we need for focusable? I'm not sure if we need much more. We have the basics here of a stack order. Do we have anything to... Yeah, we have adding to the stack here. And we have the foreground piece. Not including the taskbar entry part of it. I think we have something here. Let's try this. So we open a window. Nice. What did we get? Oh, I haven't imported use focusable here. All right, so let's import it. It's being stubborn as far as the auto import, so let's just paste it in there. There we go. So now it loads again. So we open a window. Okay. I'm able to click without it exploding. What does the console look like? Is it just freaking out? Okay. Move to front. Doesn't happen that often. So it's actually working the way we want. Interesting that false. What am I getting false for? So in the console, I was getting... Where's the code? What are my console logs again here? This Boolean here, for is foreground. Oh, so currently I'm not even setting foreground, do I? I only ever clear it. Oh no, I do set it here when I move to front. So why would blur always be false? That's weird. Huh. Yeah, it's interesting. In this console log, I'm getting false all the time. Oh, of course, because I removed it from the dependencies now, but I'm trying to console log it. That's childish. So now when I open it here, yeah, when I blur, so now it's always true. Yeah, so to me it was silly. Maybe when there's multiple windows, something acts differently. Oh, there we go. So now it's working. Look, so I click a window and you see the focus changes. And if I could open up a third one, oh, we got too many things open here. Oh my, so I've made a mistake here. How do I get out of this? How do I reload the window? Let me press reload here. Okay, let's switch to the browser and take a peek at it and see how it looks, because it actually looked better than I expected. Oh, we're way too zoomed in. So we open this window, we'll open this guy, and we'll open this guy. Oh, did I not open one? Yeah. Yeah. This is an error that happens when you open two VMs, but this is all we have for Windows right now. So there we go. So look at the stack order there, it's working. So you click one, yeah, so it's keeping track of the windows and it's focusing properly the way I want. Nice. So what piece of that required me to have the stuff that I commented out? The stuff I commented out looks pretty legit now. Okay. Yeah, so it is always true. So I think my logic's fine there to not check for it. And the move to front stuff's not spamming, so that actually doesn't look so bad. So let's go back to the code. So we could just stick with this. We don't need to check his foreground. That's a waste of time. So let's make this more simple. Yeah, that's a really simple one. All right. So on blur just clears the foreground ID. And there's no point checking Z index here. This one does check if it's foreground though. Yeah, it needs to be foreground. Are there times where it wouldn't be? I think so. Let's take a peek at that. Go back to the browser again. Oh, too big of a window. It's dominating the thing now here. Oh, wow. Okay, let's refresh that. There are some glitches that I've noticed when you run two x86 emulations. So I'm considering limiting it to not even be able to do that, but I don't want to have to. Let's just open two windows this time. Yeah, there we go. So we're getting some falses and some trues, so that means we do want to check for that probably. But yeah, it's a lot more simple now. We don't need the z-index stuff, I think. So I've actually simplified it more, at least currently. That looks good to me. So this is foreground stuff. That's only going to matter once we have something else setting the foreground ID. But for now, that looks good. It's flipping the way I want it to. You see, we're getting the effect properly. So that is focusable now. So let's take a peek at what we changed. We didn't have to change a ton. So we added that ref to the window and we made our focusable hook. We also had to pass style and remove it from default. Now it fluctuates, the z-index. We've added session, foreground memory, and stack order to the session. That makes sense, I guess. I guess it could be cool in the future where we could close the browser completely and open it again and you still have all your windows. That'd be neat. We're not doing that right now. Yeah, that we don't have. I don't think. I wonder if we open Windows and then we refresh. Yeah, that didn't really do anything. That's okay, cool. that works fine then. So the biggest thing was the use focusable, where we calculate the z-index based on the stack order. We have our move to front function that puts it to the top of the list. And we have our few little things that monitor the way hooks do with their life cycles. I like it, and it seems to work. So let's commit that as another success. What was that one we just did? Stacking order. Oh yes, the taskbar piece. Let's just double check that. Yeah, you see now the window's over top of the taskbar. That's because we're using z-index is above 1, I think, for the taskbar now. So if we do z-index, I think somewhere we have it as a 2. I think 2 is not enough. If we put 3, maybe it goes over. Yeah, 3 is going over, but if there's a third window, then it won't go over that. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it to 1,000. So someone's going to have like 997 windows open on my thing for the window to go above the taskbar. So I think that's fine. So now that's where it should be. Nice. Stacking order done. And now our windows, if you go to, oh man, bad example again. Why do I keep opening that one? Well, we need a file manager. We need that darn file manager. I think that should be the next step. What's next here? Refocus on opening. Okay, that's easy enough to do, I think. I think that's just in the file entry where we open it. Yeah, here's where we have open. And I think I wanted to change this slightly. I'm just trying to find in the code where I changed it. Okay, yeah, it's actually pretty simple what I did here. So another thing we want to do is let's go to the window here. So let's say we got this open here, and then we open another thing here. Now, if I click Hello World, it's not opening another one, but it's also not putting that one to the front. I want it to be put to the front. So what we'll do here is we'll say, if the process already exists in the processes list, then just set it to the foreground ID. Set the foreground ID to be that ID. Otherwise, we open it like before. And now we just need to get these things. So we already can get processes here. And ID, we don't have ID. Oh, okay, that gets trickier. See, ID is something that's a combination of the PID and the URL. So we're gonna have to make a general function that can know what the ID will be. So we're gonna get the ID here. We're gonna say create PID, where it takes the PID and it takes the URL and it makes what will be the generic one, the one that's being used here in open. And we're gonna use that in open too. And then for set foreground ID, that comes from the session. So equals use session. There we go. That's our session. So that part's correct. We basically just need create PID, and we need to add some stuff to the dependency array. All right, so we added processes and set foreground to the dependencies of onClick. Now we just need this create PID command. So if we go to the open, which will be in context, process, functions, yeah. Open process right here. So you see it takes a process ID and a URL. So here's the logic that I want for create PID. So I think we'll just have that right here. Create PID equals whatever. Oh yeah, what did I had nothing in the clipboard of value there. So the create PID is going to do this. And it's going to take the same pieces here. There we go. It's a simple function. And now we'll just put that in here. Process ID and URL. And it returns a string. There we go. So now that this logic for how a PID will be created is generic, now we can import that here. Nice. So now we can check to see, I mean, it might not exist, but we can say, hey, if you were to open this, here's what the PID would be. So let's see if it already got opened. And if it did, then let's just focus it again. So now let's try that. So now in our example, we open Hello World. It's over here. We open Linux. Now if we try to open Hello World again, there we go. It shot it to the front. That's what I wanted to happen. Nice. So another one done. Refocus on reopening. Yep. Okay, focus on next when minimized. Oh yeah, that's another little piece of the puzzle that I made. I guess we could do that too. So how does that work? So what my logic for that one is, it works better if we have 3 windows, but basically let's say you have this window open and you have this window open. So when you close this, I want it to focus on that. I mean, you couldn't tell the fact that it didn't because there's not a 3rd window, but if there was like window, and I close, it's not gonna jump to whatever the 2nd thing was in the stack. So I wanted to see what I think I had a whole, yeah, I got a whole hook for that. Let's do it. So let's again write where the hook will be used first, which will be in the window actions, I guess. Is it? Because it's only something that happens when you close the window. That's the only time when we switch focus, I think. So when do we close the window? We close it in the title bar when we press the X. So that's in the use window actions here, close. So just like how we messed with open, now we have to mess with close. But let me see how. Oh, also when we close something, we have to remove it from the stack. That was another thing I wanted to do. So that's almost related to this, kind of. So when we close, we want to set the stack order now. Take the current stack order and basically just filter out the piece. And I'm gonna copy that piece because I've written it down. So current stack order, filter out by stack ID that doesn't equal. Only keep things that don't equal the current ID, basically. And then close. And then I want you to set the foreground ID to the next focusable thing, the next focusable ID that we're going to figure out with a hook that we have. And we use a hook because it's just a convenient way to do it. So the hook I'm going to just put up here. I'm going to call it use next focusable, and I'm going to pass in the current ID, and I'm going to say I want you to give me the next focusable ID, and we'll have to add that to the dependencies. And so we need set stack order too. That was coming from the session. Right, so we use the session there. Let me save this. So that's mostly cleaned up. Oh yeah, and foreground ID. So we need to also set the foreground ID. So we set a few things when things are closed. Let's update our dependencies here. And now we just need to focus on the use next focusable hook. So I'm going to make it in the windows here. Actually, I think it's only used in the title bar. Oh no, I need it for the task entry too, I think. Oh yeah, because if something's open and I click it in the task entry, it'll minimize it. And I want to focus on the next thing when that happens. So it's part of a window function though, so we'll leave it in the windows part. We'll call it use next focusable. And let's look at the magic of what it is here. Because it's actually pretty simple. It's like 20 lines or less. There we go. That's all it is. So the use next focusable takes the ID that you have, and then what it does is it does a memoized stack, or a memoized string, where it takes the stack order, filters through it to remove that ID. So just show me the remaining stack elements. What is it doing here? Oh yeah, so to find the next focusable ID, filter out the ID of the thing that's asking for the next thing, and then find the process that's not minimized. So it goes through the processes of each stack ID element and looks at they're minimized. And if it's false, if it's not true, then it stays in the stack here. And oh no, it just finds the first one. So it's just find. So find is to find one. So find the first thing that's not minimized, basically, and it's not. I wonder if I could just do it in find here. rather than filter. Maybe filter is a waste of time. Let me just do this and just go through them there. So yeah, stack order find where the stack ID is not the current ID and it's not minimized. That looks good. And it's memoized so that it's not changing every time that the processes changes. Or would it need to? Only when the processes changes, I guess. I don't know if this needs to be a memo function. That's debatable. That might be over. I don't feel like it's early optimization because I just like using this. Like to me, syntactically, that's fine. It's like, hey, only change it if I need you to. Now, is it necessary? I don't know, but okay. So it tries to find it, and if it finds nothing, rather than be undefined here, it'll return blank, because blank is essentially to clear the foreground ID. So we can import that in now. It also did not find that. Surprise, surprise. I'll just copy my existing import that I have from somewhere else. There we go. So that adds it there. So now if it closes, it should focus on the next thing. Now let's see if we can notice that here. Let's open 3 things. Yeah. So I'm trying to think how to make it do that. If I click this one and then if I click this and yeah, it's tricky. If I click this and I close this, how do we know that it's doing that? How do we know it's focusing on this one? I guess in the case of closing, it's not important. It's more when you minimize it. Or, it's even more complex than that, actually. See, like, where it's not noticeable, it's because of the stacking context. It's already in the right place. Where it matters is to actually have the focus, to actually have it legitimately focus on the window, like the element object. Close this. Two VMs angered it again. So I think this is working, and it's updating so when it closes, it probably does set the next focusable ID. And when you set that, it is probably setting as foreground. I don't know if it does this then. It probably wouldn't do that. Maybe move to front should do that. Maybe move to front should have that here, actually. And then the window ref should be what matters there. And then actually this piece can just be like this. There we go. So yeah, the initial move to front, and move to front does focus, and every time move to front occurs, it should be focusing on that object. That should just be how it was. So that's good. So now let's say you have 2 windows and you close one. Before, you wouldn't notice because of stacking order. It would just be like, okay, that window's in front now. But it wasn't focused. Like it wasn't, if let's say that was a text editor there and you wanted to start typing, it wouldn't just work. Whereas in Windows it would. If you had 2 notepads and you close one and it goes to this one, you could just start typing there. But that wouldn't have worked here until we had this focusable. So it's cool to have that code, but unfortunately it's not very visible because we don't have the focus. What pieces are we missing? The coloring, for one thing. We don't have different coloring based on focus. So anyways, we got the logic now. Let's just double check it. So yeah, I moved that slightly. In focusable. We got the next focusable. And here when you close, it now will focus on the next focusable item. We need to do the same thing for when it minimizes. Where is that? On close, on minimize. Oh yeah, it's so the same here too, actually. So in window actions on minimize here, it needs to also refocus. So minimize and set focus. Right. There we go. That's better. And this needs updating again. So yeah, so that's going to focus properly now, which is important for having the correct focus and foreground ID. And I wanted to also do it in the taskbar entries. Let's go to the taskbar here. Taskbar entry. So the taskbar entry, I also have this minimize logic. So we'll also do the same thing here. That if you minimize it via the taskbar, it's also going to set the foreground ID to the next thing. So that comes from use session. Oops. Darn it, I wanted to auto import that. Equals use session. I just have to pick the right one. There we go. And what was the other thing? The next focusable ID, yes. We'll just copy that. So the taskbar also knows of what ID should be the next thing to focus on. Now that's working, nice. Good, fixed. And now we have to add them here. There we go. So if we were to minimize from the taskbar entries, it would also do that proper focusing, which unfortunately we don't notice as much because we don't know the styling. And I don't think I'm going to get to that piece today, honestly, but at least we got the logic of how this focuses to make it focusable. So, because that was the next thing on my list. I don't think I'm going to get to any of the apps. Focus on next when minimize closed. I did it. It's done. So guys, we didn't get to any apps. We just did refactors and features and behaviors. And you see, we didn't add any apps. I have such a cool app I wanted to show you guys, but it's going to be next episode, I guess, because we're already 3 hours in, insanely. It's hard to believe. Man, that's crazy, actually. So we did a bunch. We did so much, but we're at the 3-hour mark, so I think we're going to stop. So the things that we're going to do next stream are the code editor for sure, and the file explorer. So then we're going to be able to look at the files. We're going to be able to edit files with text and code, and we're going to have almost like our own little version of VS Code inside the app. But I am drained. We did so much today, guys. It's already midnight. So I think we're going to have to call it a day without actually getting to the app because I just had too much. And next stream, I'm going to be more responsible with our time here. And I'm going to do less because I just did so much this recent week that I'm surprised by it when I actually look back at it and was like, oh man, what do I got to do this stream? Too many things. But thanks for hanging out with me, guys. If you liked the video, throw me a like, throw me a subscribe if you want to see more. Next stream, we're going to do the code editor and stuff. And we're going to keep rolling with that. And thanks, guys. Got another one in the bucket. So ciao. See you guys next one.